What's up, everybody? It's Wes, Hank, and Andy, and we are back for round 2 in our weekly deluge of double drops as we continue to cover both Star Wars The Bad Batch, which we did earlier this afternoon, and Star Wars The Mandalorian Season 3, which we are about to jump into tonight. As always, it's 100% interactive. Hope you've brought your questions and comments, because I know I have some about what's going on this week. Polarizing episode this week, but we will get through it. There are a lot of things that are redeeming about it. Now, that is certainly my own opinion. I don't know if you guys hear that.
I didn't find that it was a bad episode at all.
No, eh?
I don't know what people are talking about.
It is chapter 19, the convert, or if you prefer. I had some fun with this. Thanks to Andy for helping me put this one together. It is the FANdalorian, chapter 19, the convert, or if you prefer, it's the Andorlorian. They'll never see it coming. Or maybe you prefer the Orwell-Lorian, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Or how about even the 1984 Lorian? It was merely the substitution of one piece of nonsense for another. All right, before we get started on the breakdown, though, we got to open up that cage one more time, because it is time once again for
Bad Star Wars Jokes.
As always, this week's bad Star Wars joke comes from the internet, because that's where all of the fan outrage lives. Oh, I mean, all the best Star Wars jokes live. Guys, if you have a bad Star Wars joke that you would like us to read over the air, please do send it in to us at FANdalorian3@gmail.com, or hit us up on all the socials, because we're everywhere. Guys, in the Star Wars universe, what do you call an evil procrastinator?
What do you call an evil procrastinator?
Definitely not Lord Sidious. He got stuff done.
Yeah, that's true. In the Star Wars universe, you would call an evil procrastinator Darth Later.
Darth Later.
There you go.
They're getting really, these are getting pretty thin.
We've got the top 10 already.
I think so.
We're going to have to start making up more.
There's only so many websites I can scour for these things. All right, this has been another installment of
Bad Star Wars Jokes.
Nice.
Let me roll this back here, the actual title, because that's what we're talking about here. It is the FANdalorian.
That was going there for a while.
I couldn't help it. As soon as we talked this week about what was going on in the episode, I'm like, oh, we need to do some more logos for these, because they're hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Even if they are true.
Somewhat, yes.
Before we get into the actual breakdown, as always, I'd like to get your initial thoughts, guys. What did we think of the convert overall?
There you go. Amazing.
We have we have an amazing.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
No,
I wasn't expecting that.
One of the things, like the people who were complaining early in the season, I didn't know what I was missing until I'd seen Andor, and now when I watch this, it feels, and that's not my opinion. That's what people were saying online.
Sure, yeah.
Now that I've watched Andor and I go back to this, I feel like I'm watching a cartoon again, which,
Interesting.
So
interesting.
They're learning something here from Andor in a way. You know what I mean? It's all tied together. All these, even Andor, all these Star Wars stories are tied together thematically, and there's certainly different genre tales inside that.
Yeah.
We're about to get the acolytes is reportedly like a very dark sort of,
I had said when we covered Andor that with Andor as a series, there is now a flavor of Star Wars for everybody.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And now it looks like we're starting to mix and match with this episode.
But definitely, like it was structured strange. Like it felt like you said in the chat, like it could have been 2 episodes, or I've seen memes or TikToks of people, here's how to watch it, and then fast forwarding through the whole middle of it and watching the bookends, like the cold open end. But it's not like what the middle stuff doesn't directly pertain. So you could have done Book of Boba Fett without that middle stuff. You could have.
Yeah.
It was nice to see them together and some cool stuff happening there for sure. You got to get Grogu back. But this pertains heavily to the subject matter at hand.
It really does.
And when we get to the end of the discussion, I have a theory that ties right into Bad Batch and
Andy,
this show.
Before we push it over to you, Andy, let's take a second and check on the comments here.
here.
Lauren, crazy. I presume that is in response to your "I loved it" comment, Hank. Also, so much info in the backstory. Agreed with that. Red Swenson, welcome back, sir. Red says, I liked it. It's interesting to see what happened to the Imperials after the war, but I did not enjoy the jarring Mando tease, followed by Coruscant Noir, followed by Mando tease. That's good, interesting stuff. And then Lauren, mix and match DNA as well. It's right there in the title card, isn't it? Andy, how about you? Where are you at with your thoughts?
Picking it up right where it left off last week, and then kicking it into overdrive with the dogfight, if you will, in space.
Yeah,
and then continuing on, and then to slow it down as much as they did, I think might be what jars people too much. But you can't just keep going at that breakneck pace the whole thing, and breaking it up like that. It gave you a good long chunk to absorb some of what else is going on outside of the convert.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
I think I share that opinion too. And this has been a common sentiment across sort of the fan community over this last week. And I will say that I did find the structure of what I'm calling it the episode within an episode. Like that. I get that there are subplots and subtext, and in the course of a feature film, I get that you follow you have your main plot and then you have your secondary plot. And in the course of a feature film, an hour and a half or 2 hours, it kind of works that way. But when you're talking about a television show, granted, this was the longest episode of the season, it really did feel a little jarring to have this opening crescendo with the starfighter battle, which I want to talk about specifically. I feel like everything that happened in the opening, like that whole starfighter battle, that could have been tacked on to the end of the last episode. And we could have opened right with Pershing at the Opera House, done all of the Coruscant Noir stuff. Thank you, Eric. And then ended with Bo and Din arriving at the covert.
We kind of know exactly where this story takes place now.
Yeah.
If we if it didn't have bookends,
right,
this could have been happening anytime in that 4-year continuity where we're all getting kind of muddy. Like we're not sure exactly what Jon Favreau said entirely.
I will say this:
4 years.
I think the reason why they pushed it all onto this episode was, I believe, and again, it's not network television. There is no weekly shooting schedule. This thing is filmed completely in advance. But when you get down to the editing process and you know that you're going to reveal the mythosaur, I think there's a style choice that has to be made. Like, do we try to top this? We can't top this. And so that's the decision to, okay, we'll cut it off here. But structure wise, I still feel like the starfighter battle could have been a part of last week.
It just feels like Game of Thrones to me. Like
in a way, yeah.
We jumped into Game of Thrones episodes or even chapters. Chapters is a really better example if you've read the books. Where suddenly we're talking about people for pages and pages and pages, and we just want to get back to Arya sticking people.
That's right.
Right.
So true.
But
that's so true.
This stuff really matters, and I think there's a reason. We're all a little confused why they were running Bad Batch and Mando concurrent, and I actually think there's a heavy duty reason now. And
this episode,
precisely why this episode is placed where it's placed.
Yeah, this episode feels very much on trajectory with what we've been saying all along, that both shows are pointing at the sequel trilogy, and really, really apparent in this episode.
With the same, Dave Filoni's writing the next episode reportedly, and the
co-writing,
co-writing, and executive producing both.
Yeah.
There's a reason they overlap, and there's a reason what inside them overlaps when it overlaps too.
Well, I was going to save that to the end, but you've already mentioned it. Next week's episode, we get a big contrast. We are going from the longest episode of the series to reportedly the shortest episode of the series. It's called The Foundling. And because of that, I made a joke about how we talked about that earlier, The Foundling. I'm like, oh, it's going to be about Ragnar. Not realizing that it was co-written by Dave. Knowing that, there's no way in my mind that next week will not be a Grogu-centric episode.
Yeah.
And such a short runtime, the leading theory is that we might finally get the answer to how he got out of the temple. So
it's quite possible. Hence the extended Jedi scene in the trailer.
Yeah. Just a quick note on that starfighter battle before we get into it. Guys, if you're looking for new wallpapers for your phone, there's probably 1 million of them in there if you frame by frame that thing. It is so good.
It's dirty good.
All right, you guys. Sorry, Andy.
I got one more thought.
Sure.
Based on the book ending of it, I'm glad they did it that way and not like, a chunk at the Mines of Mandalore, then cut to Pershing, then back to the Star Battle, then back to Pershing, because the way they did it, like both chunks are important, and that way
they are.
On those at that time.
Yeah. No, you're right.
It's like if they cut it back and forth like the soap opera,
it literally
one or the other will lose.
The Pershing stuff happens over 3 days. He wakes up after it happens over 3 days, and you can clock it kind of. There's a few references to let's do this tomorrow night, etc.
Yeah. It's easy to follow the passage.
And of time literally, I think that they jumped into space. This event happens. They hyper jump back into where they're going
back to the previous one where they were sleeping in hyperspace. Maybe it took them 3 days.
That's exactly what I think. That's exactly why and this puts it right there for a reason.
Okay. Well, I you know what? I can't argue with any of that. I mean, it's all very sound to me. I just was thinking from a production standpoint, I kind of like, it's jarring. I get it. But no, you're both dead on. I totally agree with it. All right. Are we ready to get into the breakdown?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, this week it is chapter 19. It is called the Convert. This one aired Wednesday, March 15th, 2023. It is co-written by Jon Favreau and Noah Cluer. Now, Noah Cluer wrote 7 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett, a show that we all very much enjoyed. This one is directed by Lee Isaac Chung. He's the director of the film Minari, as well as Abigail Harm. He's also attached to direct the upcoming sequel / reboot, Twisters.
Do we really need a
Twisters?
That one?
Yeah, I don't know about that. As I said, this was the longest episode of the series, not just the season, but the entire series. Advertised runtime of 59 minutes, or 51 minutes and 44 seconds minus your title cards and end credits, which is still more than 1 hour's worth of network television with commercials.
Yeah, around 41 minutes.
Yeah, the average the average Mandalorian episode has been right in that 38 to 45.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to see that this one, even without all that stuff, is still it's long. Our episode synopsis this week reads: On Coruscant, former Imperials find amnesty in the New Republic. Let me move this forward here. Okay. The episode opens with Bo-Katan and Din Djarin recovering on the steps that lead into the living waters. Mando is redeemed with Bo-Katan as his witness. And we learn that Mando did not actually see the mythosaur, and Bo does not tell him either. He collects a sample of the living waters, and together they depart the Sundari Undercity. Now, the living waters that weren't actually that deep, apparently, as we find out. So, seismic activity. What do we think about that? We had some pretty strong thoughts about the mythosaur last week about, is this a new creature? Is this the same creature as, has it been living in there for centuries?
Probably.
I would
think
think
it's a while to get that big.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the same creature, or, I mean, we don't, there's so much we don't know.
I went the other way with that. I actually proposed that that is a new one. Yeah, especially when she says that the seismic activities from the bombing must have opened up a new chamber.
Well, that's entirely possible.
That knocked the bottom out of the.
Looks like it can live
waters,
comfortably in those conditions, and stuff like that.
Well, Yeah, I mean, as you say, there is so much we don't know about this. Is it an aquatic creature? Is it a mammal? Like, can it do both? Like a whale? Like,
Amphibious.
what are we talking about here?
Is its poo what gives the
The living waters, the green
living-
glow.
Is that what makes it green?
Mando magic, if you will?
It's exactly.
So maybe there is something magic about the waters after all.
I don't know. I'm gonna have some questions about that later on as well, especially when we get to the dipping portion, the pouring
But
portion.
her decision to, and we've seen that before too, right? But her decision not to say anything, but to, it's almost, her line of questioning is awkward and obvious. Is it
Did
just
you,
awkward and obvious to us?
Did you see something down there?
Nope. What about you?
No.
Like,
what are you
like
talking
anything
about?
alive?
Nothing.
Like a big giant sort of like horned thing? but
Yeah.
not quite a mythosaur?
So there was an interesting thing came out this week. Katie Sackhoff at the South by Southwest, I think, festival or convention. Sorry, not South by Southwest. She gave an interview and they asked her, why did Bo-Katan not say anything? And Katie's answer, now this is, I'm sure there's some diplomacy in her answer, but also she doesn't know the way the show is going to be written. She said that there's a part of her, now this is Katie Sackhoff speaking, what she thinks Bo-Katan's mindset is that Bo is at a position where she's not sure if she believes her own eyes.
She's in a state of shock.
Shock, yeah. Full on shock value, which I find to be completely interesting. I'm still
processing it.
Yeah,
sure. I still think that there's the gears are still rolling. I mean, she's been so singular of purpose since we met her all the way back in the Clone Wars. It's all been about the leadership and the ruling of Mandalore. I don't think that's gone.
No.
And it's a good poker card to keep that secret and safe, if you will.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Giant Balrog.
Do we know much about Mandalore in the way of like the inner core workings?
The planet itself?
Yeah.
This is the first time we've ever gone this far below the surface.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Because I wonder if it's something like on Naboo where there's a hollow core.
Oh,
and,
right.
Large creatures just come and go as they will.
No, that's good point. Very good point.
Until we actually find out.
Now, Red says, I fully expect Bo to vanish for the season and to reappear in the last episode, riding the mythosaur and challenging Din for the saber. We have some interesting thoughts about that as well. Now, I don't know if my personal feeling is that doesn't line up with the way I think it's going to go.
I think those two things are diametrically opposed.
Bo-Katan and the mythosaur.
No, the mythosaur and the darksaber.
Ah, right. That they actually are not linked.
But like one is a representation of the old history of this guy rides in on that's your king.
So the original tale is the mythosaur, and
that's correct.
According to canon now, which is different from Legends, what we're used to, but the Mandalore the Great tamed the mythosaur and became ruler of Mandalore and united the clans. That was eons.
Yeah.
Before Tar Vizsla created the Darksaber. The Darksaber is a sigil to remind people of the power and magic of the mythosaur. But
interesting. I like that actually.
But now there's two claims to a throne here. So that's why I think we're like I said in the chat, I think we're gonna faction off here. And I think one person could claim them for that. Like one person could ride the mythosaur, Grogu, and another person could wield the Darksaber, and those factions will butt heads because they're also both different ideologies.
They are different ideologies. We're going to get to that at the end because there's some other like white mythosaurs in the room, if you will, by the time we get to the end of the episode that really kind of pull all these wise hows together. But Eric is actually hitting on one of those right now, uniting the old and the new. That is something that I have always believed was going to happen over the course of the series, that there would be a blending of, and it's something that we as hosts have talked about that ties back into your factioning thing, Hank. Otherwise, we go back to Bo-Katan's line about Mandalorians killing Mandalorians for reasons that are too complicated to explain. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to do that.
No, but we do want to go back to her other line. There is another way.
There is another
new
way. Yeah, that's true.
United.
That's true.
Both.
Yeah, a way that she's probably not even aware of herself when she said it. Yeah.
Until she got a glimpse of, oh, look, the ancient part's actually real.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well then, Departing Mandalore, Bo and Din head for Kalevala, but are attacked by 5 TIE interceptors. Mando says if they can get to Kalevala, he can use the N1 to reinforce her mid-flight. But the heat is too much for them, and Mando has to take up the rear gunnery station. Bo then dives into the planet's atmosphere, makes a high-speed pass over her ancestral castle, while Mando is able to take out one of the fighters before he jetpacks down to the N1 and launches it just before it's struck by cannon fire from one of the 4 remaining TIEs.
Crazy.
What a crazy action sequence to start this off.
If we didn't know the N1 was fast before.
James Bond level cold open.
Yo,
loved it. Absolutely loved it. Now, one of the major things that came out of this, besides just the intro to the battle, and I actually took some time, I broke the battle down sort of in stages by like each TIE's destruction. Something happens here where, oh my gosh, what is it? As they're leaving Mandalore, Bo-Katan basically offers to bring him in for a meal, and then says something to the effect of, but I'm guessing that helmet's never coming off. And then there's this exchange between the two of them, and we get something from Grogu. I want to play it for you guys so we can actually talk about this, because there's been a lot of chatter about this sort of on the internet. Now, here's what happens.
This is the way.
This is the way.
We've never heard a vocalization from Grogu like that before.
No.
Now, the popular theory is he's trying to say, this is the way. And if you listen to it, there are 3 distinct vocalizations there. It could very well be that.
This is way.
I mean, they even look, Bo and Din both look at each other,
right,
and they have this like, what the heck just happened?
Right. Yeah.
Moment. Yeah.
This is the way.
The way. Yeah. Do you
That's
want to hear it again?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's hear it again.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Yeah. This is the way. Or something to that effect. Now, there's something else going on here too. When they get attacked and they realize that they're being pursued by interceptors, there's a whole discussion about like, where did they come from?
Yeah.
And she basically says, I've scugged off a lot of warlords in my time, to which Din says, well, that's what happens when you steal their ships. Is the 2-year absence thing, or the 2-year time jump thing, presenting a problem here? Because not knowing anything at this point in the episode, my mind goes to, did it really take the Imperial remnant 2 years to come calling?
Or are they after Mando and Grogu? Because, like, how long has she been sitting on that throne just chillaxing?
2 years. Do you know what I mean? Like 2 years since the end of season 2.
Because, like, they could roll onto the planet and just do what they were about to do with her sitting there.
I guess so.
But
maybe not.
Maybe they picked their trail up from Mandalore.
You know, for everybody to bail out on her and take those ships, the Gideon's cruiser, the Gozanti, and take off. You're telling me that nobody came looking for those for 2 years, and only now they're just showing up and exacting some kind of revenge? Because not knowing what we think we know, that's what it looks like. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or have
it could just we could just speak to a presence of, like, remember I talked the last episode, like, what I figured there'd be some kind of Imperial presence on Mandalore, like, but so maybe there's just a fleet in the system.
Yeah. Red's got a good question here, and I'm gonna segue right into that here. He says, or is this related to a certain prisoner's rumored escape? That's a very good point, because now we can talk about the things that we think we know. And what we think we know, based on a line of dialogue that's coming, is that Moff Gideon is in the wind somewhere. He didn't make it. He may not have made it to the New Republic War Tribunal. So he could still be pulling the strings. Now, I have another thought on that, and I'm not discounting that. That's entirely possible, and it's probably likely. But you know what we are like here? We like to Hail Mary. Now, let me throw a Hail Mary at you. I've talked about this before. We've talked about it collectively. There's a lot of symbolism in Star Wars.
Space Nazis.
This is the first time in the course of The Mandalorian that we've seen TIE interceptors.
Yeah, that's a whole other level of
Mhm.
Imperial.
We really do. I mean, The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi taught us both that the interceptor is like the next level TIE. If Moff Gideon, who was the overarching big bad for seasons 1 and 2, and we associate him with TIE LNs or standard TIEs, is the presence of TIE interceptors a way of telling us that there's a bigger Imperial bad?
That something has stepped up.
And if that's the case, we already had some foreshadowing with the Purgles. Is this another way of foreshadowing the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn?
Maybe.
I think both of them are valid.
Equally possible.
I do think that it's going to be Gideon, but I still like the idea that it's not.
Or
Almost
maybe it's
certainly.
Gideon,
Go ahead.
maybe it's Gideon under control of that next level,
So
And
that's
that's-
another thing.
which
then.
would explain how he got out.
Man, I love the
Yeah.
way you're thinking,
That's
because
precisely what I was going to say.
with
for
the
sure.
Imperial Remnant, we go back to Legends and we talk about some of the Remnant, like Warlord Zinj and the other guys there. They were fighting each other as much as they were fighting anything else.
Yeah.
Do you think that Gideon, in the absence of Thrawn, who's been gone now since before the events of A New Hope,
Mhm.
has just turned up what now 5 10 12 years 12 years later? You think Gideon is in a position to want to give up anything that he's eked out for himself because a higher ranking officer shows up?
Yeah, because the higher ranking officer is about to save his ass from going to the chair.
So let's take that out of the equation, though. Let's presume that Thrawn did not break Gideon out, that Gideon has his own. Now, remember, he's been presented to us as a very ruthless ISB officer, and we've seen what the ISB is capable of doing in Andor. We could have two Imperials directly at odds with each other.
True.
That could put them in conflict, and I think that's an interesting exploration.
It's quite possible, but I think it's probably more likely that it's foreshadowing. Like there's a few things here. Like there's multiple types of ties. The sheer number of ties.
I said earlier that if it had been, even if there was just one, if there had been a single TIE defender in that mix, then we would have known what.
It's
like
unequivocal.
100%,
But like you say, it's foreshadowing, but I don't think it's foreshadowing to anything happening in this season or even maybe in this series. But I think it's bigger world foreshadowing. I think it's slow burn.
The appearance of Thrawn, like they did with Gideon at the end, where he cut his way out of the TIE with the Darksaber. The appearance of Thrawn on the bridge of a Star Destroyer in the final minutes of the final episode of the season, I can see something like that.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but interceptors can jump, right?
They cannot.
They can't.
They cannot. Yeah.
So then
There's got to be something close by.
There's a support ship.
Then exactly. Then it's the New Hope. Line comes into phrase. Like a fighter that size can't get this deep into space on its own.
On its own. That's correct. Red says, "I think they're Thrawn you off your game." I appreciate your witty banter, sir.
Yeah, but it'd be a nice way to just bring him in without having to drop everything for Ahsoka.
Sure. Yeah.
Looking foreshadowing ahead.
Well, there is that too. One more thing I want to talk about in this sequence, and this is just, sometimes I like to nitpick, and I'm going to pick a nit. Did anybody notice the magical jetpack? Turns out the pram's not the only magical thing that appears and disappears. So there's that cut when we cut to Din sinking down into the N1 seat. The jetpack is gone. But world building, it tells us that the cockpit is technically big enough for him to fit in there with it on, because we're supposed to believe that he was wearing it when he jumped in.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Maybe the seat just reclines enough.
All right. Well,
and it locks him in place.
Yeah. Really. I don't know. They could cut it out like the back seat of a police cruiser. You know, they cut that out for the not that I've ever been, but the handcuff cubby.
Yeah.
If you just cut out a jetpack cubby.
There you go.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's just molded plastic or something.
Makes for a better toy.
Maybe. I just want to preface this next as we go through this. I just want to preface that I think that this might be one of, if not the best live action starfighter battle in Star Wars across the board. I'm talking
It's pretty
feature
dope.
film. Yeah,
It's
it is.
awesome.
It is so good.
It feels like the animated fighter.
It really
battle.
does. It really, really, really does.
And that stuff, like, you know, and I thought that about the finale of season 1 too, where he fires his jetpack for the first time and then grabs, you know, he's riding Gideon's TIE fighter.
Yeah,
and when you see him jump out of Bo's ship
out of the
and
gauntlet,
like free fall, like that's some rebel stuff. That's the kind of things we see from Jedi
absolutely
and clones in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
It's really nice to see that stuff work in live action.
You could call it reckless abandon.
That's amazing. Yeah,
it's so good too.
And he didn't hit like all fancy and superhero landing, man. He like, you
know,
know,
no, he's like, I felt that one. My knees are going to be feeling that for the next month. All right. Well, Mando pulls a very Batwing-like maneuver when he puts the N1 into a steep climb to the point of coming to a full stall, and then he rolls the ship laterally into a nosedive, going head-to-head with the TIE that nearly destroyed his N1.
You don't quite have the shot orientated the same, but it's the first time I noticed that from that angle, the N1 looks like the Mandalorian visor.
Ooh. Oh, it kind of does. Yeah. With the T shape.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. At extreme close range, he lets loose with a single proton torpedo, then narrowly dodges the wreckage, pulling out of the dive just above the ocean, and announces to Bo that he's on his way to her. Not wearing a jetpack. Bo pushes her fighter inland over some craggy mountains and cliffs, while the remaining 3 TIEs stay glued right to her. Rolling over one of the peaks into a narrow canyon, Bo scrapes one of her gauntlet's wings, while an unfortunate TIE thunders head-on into the canyon wall. She then dives low into a watery inlet and banks her ship hard just a few meters above the water, when suddenly another one of the TIEs is struck by green blaster fire and erupts in a ball of flaming wreckage.
I actually love her witty banter, like her reassuring banter with R5.
Yeah, she says something to the effect of, don't worry, I grew up flying these cliffs.
And then immediately smashes her wing off the cliff.
And then punctuates it with the "it's been a while."
And I love the sharp turns, like dip the wing in the water and oh man, it's really nice stuff. And
we get sorry, go ahead, Hank.
Well, I could see where all the money is.
We get a reinforcement of that personality that we're starting to learn from R5, where he kind of cowardly rolls back.
Yep. R5, the anxious droid.
Yeah, seriously. Well, Mando's N1 streaks into view in hot pursuit of the remaining 2 TIE fighters, while Bo continues to jink. She thanks him for the backup, and the 2 of them split up and they return to the coastline. And with Bo acting as bait for one of the interceptors, Mando is able to use the rocky terrain to his advantage and get the drop on another fighter. Now, just with 1 TIE left, Bo cuts the power to her port engine and she throws the starboard wing into its vertical landing position. The resulting drag slings the ship a full 180 degrees, bringing her nose to nose with the lone remaining TIE interceptor, and she cuts it down with her forward-facing cannons before gravity catches up and pulls her ship into free fall. R5 gets to experience weightlessness in a whole new way as he floats up in the cabin before Bo jams the throttle, reigniting the port engine and pulling out of the stall just above the water. Then Bo and the Mandalorian head back to Castle Kryze to make sure both ships didn't sustain any real damage during the battle. And if that is not the most Starbuckian thing ever in Star Wars, anybody who's watched the reimagined Battlestar Galactica will recognize that. I'm like, oh, that's a Starbuck thing.
Yeah,
it was so good.
The Vipers are so maneuverable compared to Star Wars ships.
Doug says, too fast.
Yeah.
Too furious.
Yeah. Bo-Katan drift. Mandalorian
Seriously.
drift.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the Battlestar thing, just the way that the Vipers move. I mean, and
Yeah.
again, that's a different kind of science fiction where
Totally is. Yeah.
they treat space a little bit more like actual space. So
There's no
there are
friction.
entire sequences, yeah, with ships flying backwards, like they're dogfighting in reverse, and
Yeah.
and it really works. But what a cool nod to see Katie basically pull off the same move in this franchise, and
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, it's wicked.
And not to forget that we are in the planet's gravity well. So
Yeah.
like she only has a
There's
couple
atmosphere
seconds
and
before she's in like a literal she's
Yeah.
falling.
Flat
Yeah.
spin.
Free fall, yeah. Yeah.
atmosphere and environmental conditions to contend with.
Yeah. Well, after some very brief congratulations, an alarm rings on Mando's cockpit as they witness a bunch of TIE bombers actually destroy Kree's castle. Enraged, Bo pushes out in front of Mando's N1 and she shoots down one of the bombers with a missile. But the blips on Mando's scope just keep coming and he beckons her to leave. Bo is blinded by rage and Mando has to actually cut his N1 across her bow to get her attention. And the two of them flee Kalevala with no less than 20 TIE interceptors chasing them. And they jump to hyperspace just in time for us to get our title cards. Now, this is the sequence where we get that's a lot of ships for an Imperial warlord. 20 interceptors.
All seemingly coming out of nowhere.
Which really blows you that Legends convention where TIEs fly in flights or squads of 3. 20 don't break down into 3 nicely.
No.
Well, how many did they blow up already?
That's true. 6.
That still
6.
doesn't add up.
Yeah.
One shy.
Yeah. Doug. Who can it be now? Who can it be now? We don't get a concrete answer.
Yeah, we don't even get to see any of the pilots.
We don't get no, we did see one pilot.
Did we see one?
We
pilot?
saw one pilot, and there
Okay.
was nothing distinctive
Nothing
to
identifying?
nothing.
It makes sense that there's probably a military presence around Mandalore. Like, even the Republic doesn't F with Mandalore. Everybody just thinks it's a dead world, so it's a good place to hide, realistically.
You would think so. Well, now this is
there are
Kalevala.
Yeah, well, but the same system.
Yeah,
same system. So, and picked them up just off Mandalore, intercepted them just off Mandalore.
That's
on their
right,
way
and
to
then
Kalevala.
chased them down.
So
Yeah.
it feels like, yeah, exactly. So even if it's not, and it is,
it fits in line with Din Djarin talking to Grogu saying, and I've never been there either, but you see that world over there, Concordia,
right?
that's where I grew up. And
Yeah,
and if you dig into the history of Concordia at the height of the Imperial reign, they hid out on Concordia. Like they were like the Death Watch was like banished there. And because of that banishment, that's the reason they were able to survive.
Right.
So they've got to be good at hiding. Hence the Mandalorian coverts.
Mm-hmm.
Doug, you were right, sir. I am right there with you. You
Yeah.
said it, Thrawn. And I'm not opposed to that being Thrawn. I think that there's a strong contention there. As we also said, we got the glimpse of the Purgle. We did get the glimpse of the Purgle. That was last episode, sleeping in hyperspace.
It's all
That's the one.
entwined.
It
all
is. It
entwined.
absolutely is. Yeah.
You got,
Sorry, go ahead. Hank.
Ahsoka this summer, right? Late summer, late
That is
August,
true.
early September. Like it's coming.
That is
It's just
true.
around the corner.
That is
So
true.
yeah, these things. Yeah.
Eric reminding us that TIE complement on the average Star Destroyer is 70 to 100, depending on the class. While if it's Thrawn, it will be Imperial class.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I did a bit of a time check on that. The prologue for this episode was over 8 minutes. I have seen feature films with a shorter prologue. All right. Now we're going to change gears because dun, 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 on Coruscant, we find Dr. Pershing has been granted amnesty as part of a New Republic program to rehabilitate former Imperials who may have been pressed into service. Now, he's giving a speech at the Opera House about how his research was corrupted and twisted into something cruel. He implies that one person was intent on using cloning technology to secure more power for himself. Now, even though Pershing was directly serving under Gideon, I presumed himself to be the Emperor.
Yeah.
Did you guys get a different sort of spin on that?
No.
No, I mean,
because they're all still serving.
Yeah.
He could mean several individuals, and not realize it too. But there's something super important that I want to talk about more hammered down on at the end of the episode.
Okay. All right.
He does say a detail here about taking two types of DNA and combining them.
Yeah.
It's a super important point to what I have to say later. So let's just remember that, everyone.
Well, surprisingly, the unnamed communications officer from Moff Gideon's cruiser back in season 2, surprise, is not actually dead. And in fact, she's present for Pershing's speech, albeit she was late. Now, Pershing talks about losing his mother to heart failure at a young age and how simple organ cloning could have prevented that. And he goes on to call the Kaminoan's ability to duplicate an individual from a single strand groundbreaking. And then he outlines how his research focused on combining the best genetic attributes of multiple donors. And that's exactly the sequence that we're looking at right here.
Exactly.
Is the multiple donors.
So in one phrase, though, he's gone from, okay, we could save lives that need it by cloning the same person, or we could start mixing people and get super soldiers.
Absolutely.
Without
That is so that, I mean, that ties in later when he talks about the ethics of cloning, right? Like what you do with it, sure. Cloning for medical application, absolutely life-saving technology. Cloning for military application, something altogether different. So I got a couple of questions regarding this scene. Does every member or does every participant in this amnesty program have to go into the opera house and basically go into public confessional?
It seems that way, but
does it smack of Chinese communism to you?
Maybe.
Like
Maybe?
they publicly shame people like this, and they did, especially in the 50s, 1949, like as Mao Zedong was taking over, there was public humiliation forums as part of your re-education. I mean, that stuff's not lost on me when we talked about meet the new boss.
Meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
They're going to start pulling back these layers that just really paint
there's
how
a serious
nothing has changed.
I don't know if would you call it a complementary contrast. I mean, that whole it's the new republic, but nothing's really changed. As we're going to see the Coruscant elite, they nothing's changed in the course of their lives,
right?
Still parading around like nothing's wrong.
So there's just literally a different poster on the main building,
quite literally. And I mean, this is where, I mean, if you're just tuning in now and you missed the intro, we had some alternate title cards that really talked about the Orwellian state. Is this the first example of the episode that we're actually seeing that in effect?
Yeah,
for sure it is. For sure. The ear pull, the nervous ear pull. What's going on there? Is that just a tick for him?
Does he know what he's about to get put into?
I think he's genuinely remorseful, really.
Because at this point, he could be making a legitimate play for my research could have been good or for good applications.
Yeah.
Please let me continue it. Or if he already knows where he's about to go.
Well,
he does it another
You're on
time.
A grand stage. There's no better time to make that.
He does it a couple more times.
There's a couple more times. One of the times he does it, if I, at the risk of not remembering it when we're covering that, he does it when he's lying,
standing in the mirror when he's telling himself that he's doing the right thing.
And when he tells the robot that everything's fine. The second.
Oh, sure. The parole droid.
So we got to examine exactly what he says here, and he's doing the same thing. And I think it's it's like it's a trauma.
That's right back to because he pulls on the ear right when he talks about he's like, my mother, died when I was really young. That's when he does it.
Yeah. So I honestly think that I don't know, there might be a misdirect here. I know that she is nefarious and cranks up the juice on him.
Well, she really does, yeah.
But there's another thing too.
He could be
in
the
flashback when from season 1 where he finally sees Grogu and he's like, "Ooh, new toy."
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, whoa, that's another living creature. You're just happy as crap. You're about to cut him up.
His
But at the same time,
enthusiasm
wait, now
outweighs his discretion.
that's not necessarily true, because when they blast in to rescue him, the first thing he does is he throws himself over the table. He crouches down and says, "No, please don't. It's only a child."
Hmm.
So he was quite protective
Yeah.
of Grogu when he was in custody, I guess.
Hmm.
I took the liberty of trying to mock up the amnesty pin on their uniform. Everybody in the program apparently wears one of these. I couldn't really pick out the heraldry out of it, other than to say this: the major feature of the pin is a giant stylized letter A in the Urabesh alphabet. So A for amnesty, I suppose.
Yeah, makes more sense.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. The orange dots, I don't know if they represent
It could be like a
time in, or
numerical.
who knows. Who knows? But I thought it'd be interesting to at least take a closer look at those.
Mm.
Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry. Just catching up here at the chat for a second. Doug says it's the same people. So what is there to change? Yeah, no, you're right on that one.
No new taxes.
All right. And just for fun, because we're here, I wanted to take a look at the Opera House, and let's throw it up against the last time we saw the Opera House back in episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Not much has changed, really.
No, it's identical.
Kind of funny though that he's there now talking about cloning.
Yeah.
And last time we saw it, Palpatine was like, pathways to the unnatural.
Oh yeah, about
that factors heavily into
Doesn't it, though?
into the theory too.
Yeah.
Everything is connected.
Yeah.
Well, outside the Opera House, Dr. Pershing is fawned over by some of the Coruscant elite. Now, they make pleasantries about how it must be nice to work for a government that appreciates him. Of course, none of them actually care about him or his work, seeing as it is actually outlawed. No, they only care about their own status and what bragging rights they'll have by rubbing elbows with one of the latest amnesty participants. At least that's how I
Brave
see
New
it.
World. It's more Huxley or more Orwell.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's
Isn't
Brave
it,
New
though?
I
World.
saw an Imperial.
No,
Human
exactly.
zoos.
They
Human
get
zoos.
Exactly. Look at it's a living zoo attraction.
Yeah.
Right.
Take my
That's
picture with
that's
him.
exactly what it is.
That's totally what they're doing. There's an interesting line from the Doctor as he's coming down the stairs. He turns to the gentleman that's beside him, and he says, "The first casts rejected the formula almost immediately." Another reminder that his research, his work, is incomplete.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It is incomplete, and that's going to factor in quite heavily by the time we get to the end. All right. And then our weird looking elite guy. Yeah. He talks about, and this sort of leans into the whole we don't really care thing. I was almost drafted. Imagine me serving. And then he says a thing about Empire, Rebels, New Republic. I can't keep track.
Again,
Well,
Right.
if that doesn't tell
nothing
you.
changed.
And that's their perspective, and it's the honest perspective, because nothing would change. It's all about was that officer in season 2? It's all about order.
Yeah.
People think they want freedom, but they want order. And at the end of the day, these large power bases, that's the mandate, right?
I made a note how I felt that this whole sequence, this whole scene here with the elite, actually felt like an obscenity, given how
100%.
Yeah, given how remorseful and how genuine Pershing is and what they are doing to him, it was just like, it was almost sickening to watch it. Like, oh, so bad.
And you don't have to like the sequels, but you can see how the lore, how the First Order would pop up. And doesn't it feel like now the First Order might be the rebellion to this?
In some ways,
right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's becoming much easier to see how something could grow in. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Doug just follows up with saying, "It's the same people. So what is there to change?" Yeah, of course it is. Oh, that's the same comment as before. I double read that one.
It's the same comment.
So what
is there to change?
I don't know. It's so true.
And the Mon Cala. I think you deserve the best.
Oh, I think you deserve the best, Doctor. He doesn't care.
No, not at all.
Yeah. It's like, where's the snacks? That's, Oh, that's an interesting thought. Eric says very Hunger Gamesy. Interesting. The whole cased society. Yeah. Okay, well, later we catch up with Dr. Pershing riding home in an open air taxi. Now, the cabbie droid turns its head a full 180 degrees and it tries to make some small talk, congratulating the doctor for making it into the New Republic amnesty program, and the droid suggests some places to visit. But Pershing nervously points at the droid to pay attention to where it's driving, and they speed away.
He's got sensors in the back of his head.
Well, and here's the thing. The droid in this instance is based heavily on the original Ralph McQuarrie art for C-3PO, so presumably this is some kind of
homage to that
protocol droid. Yeah. Not the first time we've seen a droid with this look, though. Back in Star Wars Rebels Season 3, we got what's called the EXD Infiltrator droid, which also shares the same sort of head design. Although that's definitely not...
When it goes, that one.
Yeah, not a protocol droid. In fact, a very specialized reconnaissance droid. Now, the droid says a couple things. It says, you must be sure to visit the Skydome Botanical Gardens. And, of course, the Skydome Botanical Gardens first appeared in the 1994 Legends novel, Jedi Search. Now, that's book 1 of Kevin J. Anderson's Jedi Academy trilogy.
Interesting by note about that book. I can't tell you why, but I once cut all the K's out of that novel.
I don't know. It's not, and it's actually the first of a couple of references from that trilogy to make it in here. He also recommends the Galactic Museum has a wonderful new exhibit on hyperdrive technology. Now, the Galactic Museum first appeared in issue number 1 of the 1994 Legends comic Tales of the Jedi, the Freedon Nad Uprising. So that's kind of cool.
I will say this, though. The taxi driver droid here
Yeah.
is much less off-putting than, say, a Johnny Cab driver from Total Recall.
Funny. I why did I know you were going there with that?
Nice.
I don't know why, but I knew this was where it was going.
Automated taxi droids. This guy's way better.
It doesn't look like
the taxi is the open air transport. Same model as the Cad Bane transport.
There's so many open air. I went back and I looked at the a lot of the air traffic sequences, and there's just a few sort of common themes that sort of repeat themselves over and over again. Right. This tends to be one of them.
Yeah.
Arguably, it's the same class of speeder that that they used when they left the platform when Padme came to Coruscant in episode 2.
That's probably true too.
Yeah.
They paint it yellow like the Lego game.
No, exactly. Yeah. It is yellow too, although it's kind of faded.
Well, it's been a while.
Yeah. Well, arriving at Amnesty Housing, or the Amnesty Housing Complex, I should say, the cabbie droid is actually still rambling on about places to visit on Coruscant. Now, Pershing exits the vehicle and he makes his way into the complex, where he's stopped by a group of Amnesty participants who are drinking at a picnic table. Now, Moff Gideon's communications officer just happens to be among them. Well, the doctor nervously averts his gaze as he said that he didn't expect to find anyone here from Gideon's ship, a fact that that she has kept from the other program participants up until now. But what's more troubling are the rumors surrounding Moff Gideon himself. One of the men says that he heard Gideon had escaped en route to the War Tribunal, while another one says, no, that's just the cover story, because he was really hooked up to a mind flayer machine. The comms officer, she says that she really doesn't think about him anymore, and she's just happy to be able to help the New Republic like the rest of them. In the sequence when they roll in, the cab droid is still talking, and I want to talk about the conversation itself, because there's a thing it says. Do you think that this conversation that the droid has with him is a pre-programmed set of talk about these places? You know how when we were at Navarro
the
recently,
droid was like, "Go visit this."
Yeah,
visit that.
Tourist droid.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like the cab driver is doing the same thing here?
Yeah,
I say that because where does he say here? The droid says, let me just see here. It says, I first person. It says, I found the Montabog of Malastare utterly, and then it trails off as they pull up to his stop.
Mm-hmm.
Man, we've talked a lot about droids on the show and sort of droid rights and droid sentience. Does that suggest to me that this droid has working hours, and outside of that has maybe actually visited the museums and all these places as a tourist?
Oh, it's possible.
Because he's not delivering it the same way the protocol droid did.
No,
that was like, exit order tourism.
That's right. Yeah. Just to wrap up sort of the conversation points that he has, he makes reference to the Holographic Museum of Extinct Animals. Now, that is from the second book of the Jedi Academy trilogy. That's, Dark Apprentice, back from 1994. The Montabog of Malastare is another Legends reference. It's an animal native to Malastare, same planet as the Zillo Beast. Montabogs were a type of blanket-shaped airborne constrictor, and they were first mentioned in the 2003 Star Wars role-playing supplement Coruscant and the Core Worlds. Yet another direct nod to this episode taking place on Coruscant. Yeah. Now, Pershing says he was just transferred from the Reintegration Institute. Oh, why didn't I move that around? I should have moved that somewhere else. We can ignore that one. The Reintegration Institute, anyway.
Yeah. We know where he's coming from.
Yeah. Now, the cab droid himself, I'm going to go through this because this is an interesting little thing here. Here's everybody at the table. Start with our cab driver droid. That's Dylan Fershane. Now, this is his only acting credit. He's actually the associate editor for the entire series.
Nice.
He was also the first assistant editor back on Solo. We have L52. That's our scientist, Dr. Pershing. Oh, why didn't I put that in there? Oh, sorry, L52. So Pershing, that's Omid Abtahi. You may recognize him as Amid on American Gods. Now, we have one of those things where it kind of gets messed up again, where the guy who introduces himself as Amnesty Officer M34 is actually identified as M40 in the credits. So these two guys have to switch. But that's Matthew Bellows. He played Dr. Clint Hartman for 6 episodes of the amazing medical drama New Amsterdam. Then we have G27. That's actor James Chen. Now, he played analyst Ian Lim on 54 episodes of FBI. And then we have our other M34, M40. That's Max Fowler. And that is actor Crispin Stickley. He played Crispin Stickley on the series Powers. Now, I've not seen that series, but it sounded like it was pretty good.
I haven't seen it.
Basically, superheroes living, police investigating superhero crimes or superpowered crimes. And of course, G68, that is Katie O'Brien. Now, she just recently played Jen Tora, or as I like to call her, the Quantum Barbarian on Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantum Mania. So there's all your players. Well, the group yeah, go ahead, Hank.
Well, just now that we have the number designations up,
yeah,
can we talk a bit about how
they arrived at those?
It's sort of the inverse of, to me anyway, it's the inverse of the clones taking names.
Oh yeah.
So you have this sort
stripped of,
the waning days of a more civilized society allowing clones to take names, and then you have this what's supposed to be the dawn of the better society.
Yeah.
After a civil war, and we're stripping people of their names and giving them designations. And I wondered about these, like there's M's and G's and then L, and we could say
I couldn't
L
make
is for
any sense of that. What the
laboratories, but I was
maybe
just sitting here thinking like, we know she's an officer, and I presume that M34 or M40, depending on which, it's a Zuckus Forlom thing.
Yeah, really, yeah.
The New Amsterdam fella.
He does say that he was an officer. He does say officer in his handshake.
That really puts those other two guys in, like, which one of those guys was a stormtrooper? I just thought I had that thought.
Great question.
You know what I mean? Like,
I tried to sort of put some thought into what the alphanumerical thing was, and I could not come up with something that fit neatly. So I'm like, is that a geographical? Is that like, oh, we picked you up operating here so that you were now associated with this region of space? Like, I don't know.
Well, wouldn't that put Pershing in with a G category too, though?
You would think. So
and it's funny that they use the English designations.
No, I know.
Not Orbesh designations.
Yeah, you know what though? But we know. I mean, if we could have written that in Orbesh, and it would have.
But we would have called it by its Orbesh name because they all have names, and they go through the trouble of making it Tuong's Day or whatever.
Oh yeah. Well,
so,
yeah.
Just interesting.
Tong's Days, you know what I mean?
Tong's Day, yeah.
Happy Bendu Day.
Prime Day.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just for Amazon anymore.
Well, the group invites Dr. Pershing to sit with them, and they make some more small talk about how the Empire would not have handled things the same way as the New Republic, and how the Empire wasn't exactly big on redemption. Star Wars, redemption is a huge common theme.
Yeah.
The communications officer asks if Pershing has taken in any of the sights on Coruscant, and she'd be happy to show him around. While sitting there reminiscing, the group talks about the things that they miss from their Imperial days. Not in the ideological sense, but the little things in life, like better fitting uniforms and the lights of hyperspace. When they ask Dr. Pershing what he misses, he says it's the little yellow travel biscuits found in Imperial ration packs. And the group shares a laugh, while the comms officer, G68, admits that she actually misses the red ones. I found that whole thing, like they're laughing, ha, 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 ha. And then she admits, oh, but I like the red ones.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I said at the end of this episode how Pershing got played like a fiddle. And here she is. This is the first thing she does to start building that rapport to get him to trust her.
Because like if it's a ration pack, why would there be multiple flavors?
So we and Eric can appreciate this too. And I don't know if it's still in the system, but when I was still in the service, we used to have a particular dessert, which was not a cookie like that, but it was like this baked dessert, and it came in two flavors.
Okay.
It came in a cherry flavor, and then it came in a lemon flavor, so yellow and red, which I find completely hilarious. Yeah.
Fair enough.
As Red says, I prefer this IMP for breakfast, individual meal pack. Yes, exactly. That is some real military stuff. It really is.
Okay.
All right. Well, where am I at now? Here we go. We're going to go over here. Later that night, Dr. Pershing climbs into bed while he listens to some statistical data regarding Coruscant. When the doorbell rings, he goes outside only to find that no one is there. But whoever rang the doorbell has left an entire case of the yellow Imperial travel biscuits on the stoop. All right. So, I really liked what was going on here. The world building in this sequence, especially he's listening to the data pad. The data pad actually says something to the effect of thousands of layers of buildings and skyscrapers, which makes Coruscant one of only a handful of city planets known as an ecumenopolis. An ecumenopolis. Now, that is actually a real world term, and it's not a very old term either. The word was only invented in 1962 by a Greek city planner, Konstantinos Apostolou. It is a theoretical idea of an entire city planet. It literally comes from the Greek words oikoumene and polis, which literally translate as world city.
Nice.
There is a little bit of Orbesh on the biscuit packs. It amounts to the letters E and B. Take what you will from that. I wasn't going to wrap my brain trying to figure
Edible
out.
biscuit.
Edible biscuit. There you go.
Now, Hank, you had sent me something on the TikToks. The voice of the data pad.
Oh.
That I did not get.
I can't remember. My goodness. I do a lot of things when I'm scrolling. Do you have it?
I think I have it here.
Wicked. Thank you for saving me.
Okay.
Where is it here? Shelby Young.
Shelby Young. That name's familiar.
Yeah, she's.
Oh, that's right.
And she's like, people were messaging her saying, "Was that you on the Mandalorian?" And she's confirming, "Yeah, that was
yes,
me."
that was her. Okay,
So-
That's right. I forgot about
interesting. Do we know anything else about her?
I did not dig further past
That's
that.
fine. I wish you should have sent that to me. I would have put it
Sorry.
I would have put it in tonight's notes. Fair enough. All right. Well, the next day, Dr. Pershing is at his new day job where he apparently works in a data entry capacity. And he's cataloging, we will find out, he's cataloging both equipment from the decommissioned Imperial and Alliance fleets. Both a co-worker / supervisor as well as an astromech droid drop off a stack of data disks. The supervisor, having seen the doctor's speech the night before, wonders, "Why are you working down here?" To which Pershing tells him he's just happy to do whatever is asked of him.
Mm-hmm.
This is the sequence where we get the Happy Bendu Day. If you haven't already seen, I can't even tell you what episode it is. We did a whole deep dive on the Imperial Galactic Calendar, but this does come out of the Imperial Galactic Standard Calendar. The Bendu Day, that is the 5th day in a Galactic Standard week, of which there are only 5. So in this case, what really it amounts to is like the boss saying Happy Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the last day of the week. That being said, we cannot, not look at the Bendu in the room. We've seen the Bendu come up before. We've seen it in Star Wars Rebels when Kanan Jarrus met the Bendu, but it comes from the term the Bendu monks. Now, the Bendu monks, or the Order of the Dai Bendu, were a legendary monastic tradition that studied the Force. Now, they were part of the establishment of the Jedi Order, that is the Force users that predate the Jedi. And they believed that the Force was 3 aspects of one whole: the Ashla, or the light, the Bogan, the dark, and the Bendu, which represented balance by all 3. The Bendu character actually quotes that almost verbatim to Kanan Jarrus. The Ashla, the Bogan, I'm what's in the middle. And we see in this case, what am I talking about here? The symbol of the Republic, which I've also included in this slide, actually dates back to the Bendu monks' study of numerology, in which case the number 9, symbolized by 8 spokes joined to one disc, signified the benevolent presence of the Force in a united galaxy. How's that for a deep dive? We've got our friend TJC tuning in. Good evening, all, and a fair to middling evening day. I think it's later. Oh, it's definitely later for you. Early morning for you. I hope you're having a great, Monday morning for you. Yeah. And then the other cool thing was I couldn't help but notice the stacks of data disks are the same design as the data disk from the data disk, like take it, run, that they stored the Death Star plans on. So nice nod to that. I definitely appreciate that. Okay.
Still using floppies, eh? It's
Still
weird.
I saw somebody else bring that up today too.
Still using
Ruling the galaxy with a 1.44.
And just to reinforce that whole Orwellian thing, you could not look at this scene without throwing it up against what we saw Cyril Karn go through in Andor.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or for that matter, even Loki at the
at the TVA.
Yeah.
TVA.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
And that thing, this is one that throws me off here. When at the end of the war, when the US went in, Operation Paperclip, they took the scientists and they put them to work.
Oh, the German scientists on the space program.
Yeah, they put them to work for America, which is kind of like, why wouldn't the New Republic put the scientists back to science work?
Well, that's an interesting question.
And like him bringing it up, what are you doing down here?
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
It's funny that we get in Andor, we get slaves building the Death Star, literally.
Yep.
And in this, we get Imperial scientists
dismantling,
decommissioning the fleet. It's
we talked about this
gross poetry
privately, sort of off. But let's talk about it with the audience. That whole idea of looking at the history of the Republic, there's that period after, you know, the whole hyperspace war thing, but in the sense of, let's call it the modern republic, that period of time, those thousands of years or hundreds of years that led up to the beginning of the Clone War, there was no centralized military. There was no republic military.
There was the Jedi.
There was.
Yeah.
It's not that far of a stretch to think that, you know, we just want the most idealistic society we can, that people would want to go back to that they would want to dismantle. We spent so many times. How many times through the Clone Wars did they talk about, you know, the Emperor or the Chancellor's emergency powers? He keeps getting more powerful all the time. Would you not want to prevent that from happening again? Yeah.
Well,
not hard to believe.
I mean, it's not hard to believe, but it's also like, after having lived through that just twice, that they would wholesale
dismantle everything.
Yeah. Like, I could see scaling it back for sure.
Pershing himself makes a good point. Like, why aren't you guys utilizing some of this stuff?
Yeah, no,
like, it's
he
still
does.
good
He
technology,
does, yeah.
and you're just stripping it and destroying
we
it.
see X-Wings policing this, you know, we see the Rangers of the New Republic there policing.
That's true. That's
like,
true.
you know, they're not dismantling absolutely everything.
Everything, yeah.
X-Wings need a mobile ship to, you know, I guess they could jump here and there. I guess
they can jump, yeah.
So, but it would make sense if there's, like, you know, mobile police bases. Like, you know, we seen the prison ship.
That's right, yeah.
And is that thing just?
I can't see that thing
right hyperlanes. No, but is it just riding the hyperlanes? Like, is it?
And yet it was out there,
is
you
it
know,
heading for a
undefended.
prison? Yeah, except for droids. Yeah,
undefended, except for
there's a lot of good questions here.
Yeah,
and,
there really is.
None of them point to the Republic being the wonderful utopia that everybody wants, feared and hated the Empire. Right?
Yeah.
Like, if Luthen made it to this point, he's got to be contemplating suicide at this point.
Really, eh? I just read that line from him again. What is it? For a sunrise I'll never see.
Yeah,
the whole sacrifice thing.
And it never came. I mean,
no,
the fireworks and then this.
yeah. Well, sometime later, Dr. Pershing and Officer G68 stroll through Monument Plaza, eating frozen treats and marveling at all the people. We learn that Coruscant has 1 trillion permanent residents. And the Doctor naively presumes that they all work together to make something better. We also learn that Gideon's comm officer, G68, happened to train at the academy here. Now, they talk about how they thought they were doing the right thing and how close Dr. Pershing was to making some real breakthroughs, and that in the right hands, his research could have helped a lot of people. Well, G68 plants the idea that the Doctor should just keep going with his research because it's important, and that by blindly following orders was how they got into trouble in the first place. She tells the Doctor there are lots of capable people that want to help, and then asks him, "Do you understand what I'm saying?" I like that. You get my meaning? I'm telling you, you should just keep doing it. Just plant that seed. There's a line here. What does she say? Not much has changed other than taking down the cogwheels. The cogwheel being the
Imperial
crest. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just put up a new flag.
And then, you know, just some of the other things that she says to him that just to reinforce that whole, like, you get what I'm saying. If it could help the New Republic, isn't that important enough? And I mean, that's going to come back in the parole meeting where he basically parrots that back to the parole droid.
Yeah.
And here's another one for you. And this speaks to sort of some of the lines from the sequel trilogy. Sometimes you have to trust your gut. The New Republic is trying their best, but they're struggling. You know, when Leia talks about, we talk about Leia going back into service as a general.
Right.
Is this why?
100%. This is why.
Right.
100%. Like it really became. I think I sent that to the chat. That very saying.
Yeah.
No wonder Leia went back to the military.
To being, yeah, of course she did.
Being
She saw what was happening.
Yeah. This is
there is
politics, like the actual reality. I've always said, like, you can have the most wonderful philosopher king run for president or prime minister of any given country, but when they get in power and realize that there are systems set up that won't let them wield the power the way they thought they could, because there's a status quo that needs to be maintained, and that's what this is. It's evident.
There's this notion, and we know from the sequel trilogy that there is a definite camp of centrists that want to keep the government centralized and have all of the protections of that, and then there are the decentralists that want to, they want to have as little government as they can possibly have. And to some degree, it's the decentrists that win the day as they start moving the galactic capital around the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
When it just happens to be on Hosnian Prime when Starkiller Base goes off.
Well, at this point, technically, the capital is Chandrilla.
Yes, that's right.
This is just the former.
It's just a place to live.
Right.
It's just a place to live.
It's the galactic hub.
It is, yeah. Well, Monument Plaza, that's a cool little spot. Let's have a look at Monument Plaza. It's come up a few times. Of course, that's what it looks like in The Mandalorian, but we've also seen it in the Clone Wars, as well as Star Wars Forces of Destiny, as it showed up in one of the shorts there. Now, Monument Plaza first showed up in the 1996 Legends reference book, The Illustrated Star Wars Universe. And that book basically features a ton of Macquarie text, Macquarie art. And the supporting text for those locations was all kind of done by Kevin J. Anderson, who's also turned up this episode a couple of times with his Jedi Academy trilogy.
Awesome.
Right down to there's some differences too, though. Like they talk about Monument Plaza versus Monument Park, that it was originally called Monument Park, but then they retconned it that Monument Park was actually supposed to be the park that surrounded the plaza. So anyway, it is now Monument Plaza. Out. Yeah, right down to there's the big rock hanging out in the middle. We're actually going to talk about that here in a minute. Well, at the center of Monument Plaza, Dr. Pershing and G68 stop to look and talk about the giant rock that is jutting out of the ground. Turns out it's not just a rock, it's actually the peak of Umate. Umate. It is the highest peak on Coruscant and is rumored to be the only place on the planet where people can actually see the planet's surface.
Mm-hmm.
And then G68 plays a pretty cool practical joke on Dr. Pershing when she encourages him to reach out and touch it, knowing full well that that's not allowed. And the poor doctor loses his glow-in-the-dark ice cream and gets berated by a droid.
Yeah.
Again.
It's pretty strict, and swift response.
Don't touch and don't litter.
I guess
almost
it's a museum piece. Yeah, almost police state. Yeah.
Gonna go back to the Umate thing for a second, because in the last slide, as I said, you can see it there in Macquarie's painting. Now, while it is in the painting, it doesn't get a sort of a real story mention until the Shadows of the Empire novel, where it's talked about the religious cult, the flames of Umate. And the flames of Umate in that would actually meditate while touching the rock, believing that it would connect them with the planet's inner spirit. Now, the monks would also patrol the plaza, and they would prevent tourists from chipping off pieces of the rock. So I thought was kind of funny.
Real world problems, right?
Yeah, really. Well, if you've ever traveled and you've gone to places where bronze statues.
Yes.
You ever seen a bronze statue where there's just one part of the bronze statue where there's no patina on it whatsoever?
Yeah, usually the boobs.
As the two of them leave Monument Plaza, she actually offers to buy him a photon fizzle. At first, I thought she was just offering to replace his ice cream that he dropped. No, my friends, that is not it at all. The photon fizzle, that is a beverage. And it was first brought up in the 5th episode of the 1985 Droids cartoon, The Lost Prince.
Nice.
It's made its jump to the canon. It did appear in Dex's Diner in Attack of the Clones, although it wasn't named there. But it also appears in the Galaxy's Edge cookbook, where in that book, it is actually a gin-based cocktail that uses boba pearls, and it is carbonated using ginger beer. So there you go. Photon Fizzle. It's an alcoholic drink.
First introduced in a kid's cartoon.
Yeah, really. But it raises a point. I guess when you're on parole, he was not restricted from alcohol.
Well, yeah.
Oh my.
Take everything else away. Don't take that away. Well, sometime later, Dr. Pershing meets with a droid that basically amounts to a parole officer who interviews him quite sterilely with a series of yes or no questions. Do you still find your current housing situation comfortable? Are you able to maintain a constant schedule? Are you experiencing any undue stress due to work or personal matters? Have you experienced any feelings of anger or resentment towards your coworkers? And have you experienced any feelings of anger or resentment towards the New Republic government or its representatives? After answering no to all of the questions, the droid dismisses the doctor, but he pauses to ask if he would be allowed to continue his research recreationally. But the droid says that his work is expressly prohibited by the Coruscant Accords, Section 13, subparagraph 7.
You notice his body posture, eh?
Yeah.
He's
on the
he's
edge
trying.
of his seat.
Well, he's trying. He's sitting upright. He's complying.
Yeah.
His
He's
posture
very
is-
interested in, yeah.
It's because I noted it the second time around because his body posture in the second interview is very different.
It varies. It's way different. We'll get the obvious stuff out of the way first here. Our parole droid, that's I don't have a photo for because this is actually not an actor.
Oh.
Yeah, this is Regina Hermosillo. This is her only acting credit. She is the set decoration coordinator for this season of The Mandalorian.
Nice. Oh, cool.
Yeah. Now, this interview room, just in the whole
comforting
that
or
whole
interrogation?
Orwellian thing. There's a houseplant in the corner of a room that has no windows.
Yeah,
like this feels like an interrogation room, not an interview room.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it's sunny out.
Yeah, it is. Interestingly enough, it looks like they did a direct lift of the Legends. We've talked about this before. They did lift the Legends New Republic symbol. I'm surprised at how close they've mirrored that the orange one, which is kind of funny because in Star Wars Legends, those aren't actually the official colors of the New Republic. The blue and the gold are actually the official colors. Even though they say that the Rising Phoenix is more often shown in red, but that's out of a nod to the Rebellion. Now, the Alliance Star Phoenix, surrounded by a ring of stars trimmed in gold. Hang on a second. The ring of stars represents the galaxy, and the gold symbolizes the right to self-governance. Interesting stuff. And then it's all sterile and completely white in the interrogation.
Yeah.
And so weirdly lit, like
it is
so dramatically lit.
I had to go back and rewatch it. By the time I got to the second interview, I'm like, wait a minute. I wanted to specifically look at the lighting because did they light him like he was being interrogated? No, I mean there's equal lighting on both of them, so it's not
gotta
really
be like an overhead down, but then there's also one flashing right on the Republic symbol.
Yeah,
but the palette of everything too is, the palette of the Empire. The palette of the Empire is really like, you're in an interrogation room in the Empire. Everything's huge,
black
white lights.
Yeah,
there's a lot of lighting, like those weird oval shaped lights everywhere.
Yeah.
This instead of black and white or gray, it's just a muted splash of color.
So the droid is almost the same
his
color
uniform
as the stripe on the
just, it's very Imperial looking, but it's like a pastel, like a dark pastel blue.
Yeah.
It's just a
muted version of what
we're
everybody
not
else
the
is
same.
wearing. Yeah. No, we're not. Okay, well, returning to Amnesty housing, Dr. Pershing finds G68 sitting alone in the courtyard. He tells her that he considered what she said about the importance of his research, and he's convinced that in the right hands, it could still be used for good. He just needs to be able to prove that. Well, G68 says that it sounds like he wants to continue with the research, and when Dr. Pershing questions her how, she just asks him, well, what do you need? He tells her a short list of gear, basically some portable lab equipment. And he tells her that the idea is really silly, but she stops him and says that they can get what he needs, but they would have to go outside of the areas that they're actually allowed to. G68 tells the doctor that if his research really is as important as he says it is, well, she's willing to take the risk. But Pershing tells her it's too dangerous. Well, she says, well, just sleep on it then. Again, we spent a lot of time this episode building this. I said it before, building rapport, where she's trying to, which makes, we know it happens. It makes
She's
that
grooming
betrayal so much more like, ugh. And the worst part is, as the audience, we see it coming a mile away. She says to talk about the suggestive language that she used. You want to help the New Republic. They just can't see it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, he's still sort of in that mindset where like he's genuinely wanting to be helpful. And he's like, but if they found out, we'd both be sent back to the Reintegration Institute, which I presume is the building with the mind flare
where they end up.
Yeah. Now, small detail here, but there is a marked difference when they're sitting down talking to each other versus when she gets up and turns away from him. Her facial expression changes.
Mm-hmm.
The sinister, I don't know how else to say it. The sinister vibe comes through on her like loud and clear. Yeah. Later at Dr. Pershing's day job, the doctor realizes that all of the Imperial equipment that he's been inventorying is actually scheduled to be destroyed. He points out to the supervisor that it's still good equipment, and if he could have access to it, he'd be happy to demonstrate how it all works. Now, the supervisor, who is described in the descriptive audio as a lab tech, stops him and says that the department is behind schedule. On top of inventorying the Imperial disposal yards, they also have to deal with the decommissioning of the Alliance fleet. For the doctor to get access to that equipment, it would require a higher departmental authorization, of which the supervisor isn't even sure is actually possible. So the doctor just abandons his efforts with, forget I ever brought it up.
Right.
Dropping another stack of data cards, the supervisor tells Pershing that what he's doing really is helping, and then off he goes to his next stop. And the doctor opens a drawer in his desk, and he removes a pack of the yellow travel biscuits before slumping back in his chair to eat one. Take that, you bastard. Yeah, it turns out the New Republic is still keen on using the Rebellion era rank system. If it is a 1-for-1 exchange, this guy is technically a Navy lieutenant. Lab tech, though. I don't get that. There's an interesting little note here. I made this note. Like I go looking for this stuff, and sometimes you get hits on stuff, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get nothing. But I got a really interesting one on the forum C1023. C1023. If you put C1023 and add the words Star Wars to that, you know what you get? You find out that Star Wars Lego set number 75292, the Razor Crest, is 1,023 pieces. C1023, is that Crest 1023?
Maybe.
Kind of self-referential in a way.
Might be.
Yeah.
Go out and buy Lego.
If you can afford to. That stuff's expensive, man.
It's brutal.
Well, back in the parole office, the droid runs down the exact same line of questions as the doctor's last interview. But when it gets to have you experienced any feelings of anger and resentment towards the New Republic? The doctor pulls at his scarred ear. When the droid repeats the question, he offers a no. And the body language is completely different this time. He is so defeated.
Yeah, deflated for sure.
This time, the doctor doesn't formally ask any questions. He just asserts that the main objective of the amnesty program is for participants to help the New Republic, and that help succeeds anything else, right? When the droid affirms that with a yes, he tightens his jaw with new resolve, and he leaves the office. Man, what desperate measures for desperate people?
Yep.
Is that what this amounts to? Like splitting hairs like that? He's looking for permission and is using a very broad question to get a very specific answer.
Yeah. It's like I didn't get the answer I wanted last time, so if I reword it,
He doesn't even ask a question. He just says, our
Yeah.
main is to help our job is to help the New Republic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. At the cost of everything else? I don't think he says at the cost, but
Yeah.
that's more important than anything else. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, then that's what I'm gonna do.
Yep.
Doctor. You were totally redeemable. You were so redeemable. And then you did this. All right. Well, returning to Amnesty Housing, Dr. Pershing goes directly to G86's apartment. When she opens the door, he tells her he wants to go and get the mobile lab station that he needs to continue his work. She smiles and tells him they'll go tomorrow night. Well, the following night, Dr. Pershing lays his Amnesty uniform out on the bed before standing in front of the mirror and telling himself that he's doing the right thing, that he is helping the New Republic. As he leaves his apartment, the camera focuses on the crate of Imperial travel biscuits. There's an interesting, I don't know if you call it a musical cue or is it a sound cue?
Maybe.
Between the last scene and this one, as soon as he says, I want to go get it, there's that guttural, almost Gregorian monk that they use every time the Emperor is on screen.
Yes.
You know the one I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I should have recorded it, but they use the Emperor's theme, his essential music.
His plan's back on track.
There's a parallel here between what Dr. Pershing is doing and what Anakin went through when he's like, do I go to the Emperor and like, do I, don't I?
Yeah.
It's this similar sort of internal struggle. I mean, for different reasons, obviously, but all right. Well, the following night, Dr. Pershing sorry, I just went through that, didn't I? As the train at the train station, Dr. Pershing and G68 make their way inside the building. The doctor is visibly nervous, and G68 tries to get him to relax. Now, they pass a couple of security droids as well as a pair of New Republic security officers, but no one stops them. At a turnstile, they watch a man pay for his ticket and pass through. Before the gate can close, G68 sticks her foot into it, preventing it from closing, and the two of them pass through and board the train. Not a lot going on here. It's a train station.
Yeah.
Now, there is a little bit of Aurebesh in this. I've taken the liberty of flipping the sign around here. The sign actually says, so it's actually the right way because when the camera passes by, it's backwards. Yeah. It says Federal Station, Executive Building, Monument Park. The public transit system of Coruscant has a zero tolerance policy on its rules and restrictions, and you need to obey.
Tickets, please.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Papers.
Boarding. Go ahead, Hank.
Oh, papers.
Yeah, papers, please. Boarding the train, G86 and Dr. Pershing take their seats while a couple of passengers look them up and down. Then the train pulls out of the station and drops into a sky lane as it picks up speed. They get looked at and he's all like weird and stuff. Like he just doesn't know what to do. So she breaks the tension with Tong's days. Am I right? Well, Tong's Day, we're going back to the Galactic Standard calendar, at least superficially. Tong's Day is the third day of the week, so Wednesday, I guess?
Yeah, roughly.
Wednesday, middle of the week. I presume this train is full of people who are working the night shift.
Yeah.
However, and this is where it gets cool, and it ties it all back into the Mandalorian, the Tong are actually an ancient species. They were indigenous to Coruscant. And a long, long time ago in Star Wars Legends, they were actually recruited and led by Mandalore the First in conquering a new world. That new world would become Mandalore, and the Tong species would become the first Mandalorians. Now, Tongs were first seen in the 1995 comic book Tales of the Jedi, The Sith War, #1. Issue #1. Well, there we go. All things intentional. While Dr. Pershing is shocked to learn that they are headed to the Imperial ship disposal yards, the resting place of all the gear that he's been cataloging at his shiny new Republic Don't Rock the Boat job. G86 is confident that they can slip in and out and be back home in Amnesty housing before anyone knows they're gone. When he asks her if she's done this before, she asks him, "Where do you think I got the biscuits from?" The train passes through a brightly lit tunnel and out onto a flat industrial section of the planet. Of course, thematically, we've been to areas like this before. We typically associate them with evil, like when Dooku turns up to talk to the Emperor. He's kind of hanging out in the flats.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. When the double doors at the end of the passenger car open, two droids enter and begin asking the passengers for their tickets. G86 and Dr. Pershing get up and they start heading towards the back of the train. One of the droids spots them trying to evade and then follows them at, you thought the scooter chase was slow? They got nothing on this.
Or that Leia ran slow in Obi-Wan?
Yeah. The droid does the slow roll and walks after them. When they finally reach the last car and there's nowhere left to run, G86 says, "We're going to have to jump." And they do, conveniently landing on a pile of what looks like padded cargo containers. They have arrived at the disposal yard. Interestingly enough, as they start moving through the trains, he tries the Tongs Day line and it fails miserably. So we're going to have to work on that.
Now, this was a missed opportunity.
In what sense?
We should have had Tom Hanks as the voice of the ticket droid.
Well
Tickets,
done.
please.
Well done. New comment coming in from anonymous Facebook user says, "I flashed to the scene on the airship in Indiana Jones' Last Crusade when they asked for their tickets." Yeah.
100%.
Except no big burly man tried to punch them out a window.
No ticket.
That's right. Okay. The shipyard.
Mhm.
I feel like we've been here before.
I do
think so.
too.
I
Like,
can't see
recently.
there being many.
like
like,
this
is
season.
there- Is there really that many places where you can park a Star Destroyer on Coruscant?
Well, if it does ring the entire planet.
Well, that's true. That is true. And I don't want to get into the weeds of it, like how much bigger an Imperial Star Destroyer is. Although I'm not convinced that's an Imperial. I think that might actually be
Victory.
a Victory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, if that's the case, that actually lines up with fitting in the same berth as a
Is
Venator.
it Venator?
Yeah. But interesting that we get to revisit this in two series within a week of each other.
Yeah.
Also nice to see that the crane walker from Solo is back.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
Yeah. At the shipyard, G86 and Dr. Pershing sneak onto a decommissioned Star Destroyer where they make their way to a lab facility and they promptly pack up the portable lab equipment the doctor needs to continue his research. Now, when they're alerted by the sound of creaking metal, G86 tells Pershing that the ship is just settling and tells him to keep packing. But the creaking grows more intense and they realize they're no longer alone on the vessel and they make a run for it out of the ship and back across the gangway. Sneaking onto the ship, we get this like cool, the descriptive audio calls it a millipede.
Mhm.
I could not find a reference for this anywhere. So I'm going out on a limb and saying that this is a brand new bug.
Brand new bug.
Non-poisonous
brand new
version
bug,
of the one
yeah.
we saw in the Bad Batch.
Perhaps.
Yeah. We also get some exposition here about how she's so sorry that of the million times that she passed him on Gideon's ship,
Right.
I'm sorry I never introduced myself. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how to play the fiddle, but I bet it looks something just like this. You know what I mean?
I feel like some of the stuff he grabs is really specific.
Yes.
Did you pay attention to what he was grabbing?
I tried to, but
Hank,
I thought
you had some comments about that.
I had
about
thought
being-
several things were like data cards. So
Yeah.
another thing that he would be able to do from this lab is probably access his old files. Not that this is his lab, but that he has access to the network.
Possibly.
And so,
Possibly.
you know, when we talk about what happens at the end and we think, why would you do that if you need him to complete his work? Maybe you just need his files. And I do have a theory. I do have a theory about that,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about at the end. It's all tied in.
You know, but they didn't do any, like they didn't go to any computer and start extracting Like they didn't go looking for info. He just started picking up gear
It's
and filling
true.
that box.
Yeah,
It's
and
true.
the box didn't exactly seem large for if
No.
you're going to start a cloning facility.
No, but he did
I mean-
grab like what looked like vials out of a centrifuge.
That
Yeah.
yes, that he did.
You know.
Sure, to process blood and fluids,
Blood
and
samples
all that kind of thing. Yeah. Well, she introduces herself, and we finally learn that G68. Her name is Elia Kane. Elia Kane. And we find out that Pershing's first name is Penn, like Penn and Teller, Penn Pershing.
Mhm.
It's the final note in the Trust Me concert that she's been playing this whole episode.
Right.
We also learn they have this little like, what did you want to be when you grow up moment, which I thought was kind of like, oh, how touching this is.
Mm-hmm.
Find out that what makes it more tragic is that when Pershing's mom died, she was a doctor. Oh, how hard is that? I mean, no
Doctor,
wonder
you
he's
can't save
inspired.
yourself.
No wonder he's inspired to follow the vocation that he does.
Yeah.
He's also genuinely excited just to be in that room. Did you get that?
It's like, ooh, back where I belong.
I've always envisioned a lab like this, and now I'm in one. Is basically the line, I think.
Much
Mhm.
better than the burned out one on Navarro.
Well, yeah, for sure. All right. So at the other end of the gangway, Dr. Pershing and Kane are bathed in the spotlight from a police patrol gunship. The pair stop dead in their tracks as Republic security forces sweep in and surround them. But only Dr. Pershing is arrested. Elia Kane picks up the hard case full of lab equipment, and she gives the doctor a curt nod before walking away.
Mhm.
Clearly, this is the setup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So
question-
yeah.
Go for it, Hank.
Like at first, I didn't realize that she was turning him in. At first, I thought these guys all work for her.
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Mhm.
That's how corrupt we already are.
Yeah.
That there's an Imperial agent actively recruiting back,
Right.
and I'm still not convinced that that's not the case. They let her walk around with quite a bit of authority.
Mm-hmm.
She
At the
picks up
end.
that case and she walks away, and we don't see what happens to the case after.
She certainly walks away like she's in charge of the situation.
like she's in the free and clear to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but they don't even batter. There's no
No.
acknowledging her. They don't look
She
at
just
her.
walks right by.
I'm
Like,
of the opinion that
I
there
feel like
is
these
some
are
kind
her
of
men.
Oh, so I kind of went the other way with it. I figured there was some kind of like, how the like police agencies, like the FBI, will have an informant program.
So this is a sting, and
That's what I thought, that this has been orchestrated for a long time, that everything she's done has been under the guise of, we're going to go get it, and I'm going to turn you in because that I know that you're going to be exposed to the
thing.
the device.
but she
And
had
then I
so
can get
many
to the
opportunities.
real
She
work.
could have just pushed him off the train.
She could have. But then how do you explain a body? I mean, she's still trying to play within the system where she's rehabilitating.
Yeah.
So
But maybe she is like leader of this operation
I
because
feel
she
like
is.
it goes deeper than that. Yeah,
it may be. I certainly am
She's
excited
walking
to know.
around with so much anonymity. Is that the
'Cause
word?
we don't-
Yeah.
we don't know how long she's been here, right?
No, but at the same time,
Because
when we get to the rehabilitation center, she asks for permission to stay. Somebody who's in charge wouldn't have to ask permission.
No. But
So,
I do
I don't know.
believe that she has worked her way up inside the ranks.
Within the program.
Yeah.
Yeah, I buy that.
Hmm.
Our anonymous Facebook user says it felt like a bit of a dirty trick to entrap him like that. She really arranged the whole thing, kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, Greg. It's Greg. It's my friend Greg, all the way in Florida. Nice to have you in tonight, Greg. Thank you very much. I appreciate that comment.
Yeah, no doubt. She set him up like no tomorrow.
I know she really did. Yeah. Let's look at it from the perspective of she is maintaining a cover, that the New Republic is not aware that she's
an Imperial remnant.
If you look at it through that lens and ask yourself, how did she set this up? Is there any more to pull out of that?
There's the why. How does it benefit her?
Yeah.
I mean, presumably she doesn't get to keep that case.
I don't think she does.
Like, so what's in the case that, like, he just needed tools to work? Really, the knowledge is in his mind, right?
Yeah, absolutely it is.
I don't know.
And that's going to bring
lot
up a
of
whole other
questions
bunch
about
of
the Mind
questions. Yeah.
Flayer.
All right. Well, let's get to that.
When we get to that, I have a question there too.
Yeah. Okay. For sure. Before we get there, you know me, I love tech in Star Wars, and we get a pretty we get this cool look at the Republic. Now, this is essentially what is an LAATLE patrol gunship. Now, it has undergone some changes. This is basically a Republic era vehicle. It's based on the clone gunship, albeit it's a little bit smaller.
Not troop transporting more.
Yeah. This is in a police role, which we've seen it before in the Clone Wars as well as Star Wars Rebels. But it's gotten some updates. Like it's got a smooth canopy, whereas the original model has a sort of segmented tie style,
Like a squished up Millennium Falcon.
faceted. Yeah, very much so.
Right.
And there's no notches in the wings. It's all minor. It doesn't really matter, but I just thought it was interesting to see that. Nice to see this vehicle turn up in live action, by the way. And the Orbesh does translate as police. Yeah. Oddly enough, the concept art for this week shows the original design in the concept art. So why the changes? I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of changes from concept art to screen accurate stuff in the original stuff. So it may be one of those things where they've updated it on, like they did the minor tweaks on purpose so that it feels like, you know,
show the passage of time.
Right. Yeah.
That this is a newer model.
Yeah.
I buy that. All right. Waking up at an undisclosed location, presumably the rehabilitation center, the doctor finds himself strapped to a table where a Mon Calamari officer stands over him. Pershing tells the officer he can explain himself, but the officer says no need, because G68 has already filed a report. Now, the Mon Cala tells him that overcoming Imperial indoctrination can be hard, so he's going to undergo a recently approved experimental treatment using a machine called the 602 Mitigator. Crazy. Apparently, it can be used to soothe select traumatic memories. Select. But it is the same technology used by the Empire in their Mind Flayer torture device and can be used to wipe a person's memory. Now, the Mon Cala reassures Dr. Pershing that he's not going to have his mind wiped. This is the New Republic, son. And the experience should actually be quite refreshing. Elia Kane watches from the control room where a Twi'lek technician operates the device. And when it's time to leave, Kane asks if she can stay because, after all, Dr. Pershing is a friend and she still cares about him. When the Twi'lek leaves the room, Kane dials the machine up to maximum and watches as Dr. Pershing writhes on the table in the next room. There's a lot going on here.
And eats a cookie. Eats a cookie. The
irony,
super disturbing.
The irony of the human being telling the Mon Cala that
it's a trap.
It was a trap. I think we all got the joke there. Yeah. He looks at her kind of like he's completely deflated as he goes from talking to the technicians. I just wanted to help. She sent me up. She set me up, and then looks at the glass and says, "You set me up." And she just stone cold, like no emotion there.
No.
I want to talk about this machine for a minute. This 602 Mitigator, or the Mind Flayer. No doubt, completely. I guess not all the Imperial tech was
decommissioned.
Decommissioned.
Right.
Recently approved. When they say Mind Flayer that it's capable of wiping your mind, do we think it is like in the droid sense where you wipe a droid's mind and it's like hitting the factory reset? Yeah. Is that what we're looking at here?
I don't know.
I mean, that presumes some serious tech, like that you can selectively. I mean, I guess that he literally says that we can remove certain traumas.
Select traumatic memories.
So, I mean, you know, if we can hyperspace jump, I guess there's some serious tech out there. We can clone people. We've seen Obi-Wan get an injection and completely change his DNA, face, and voice. So I guess it's possible. My thought would be my question sort of strays into like, so if they can wipe information, can they copy it?
That's
and
a
therefore,
great
like,
question.
that would make sense. She could wipe him, have a copy of what he knows, and no longer need the man.
Well, that does fill the big gap that I have, and that is right from the beginning of the episode, from his speech at the Opera House. It's my work is unfinished. It is not complete, and so it's like you need him. You need him to complete that.
Yeah.
So what is it that she's trying to erase here? You know, is Pershing gonna? I don't want Pershing to wake up and be like I said earlier today,
potato
drooling in his lunch and like, change my diaper. Like
So
the guy's got to serve a purpose.
I could probably talk about my theory here because it doesn't really, it ties into what happens after this with the bookends, but it really pertains to the cloning and stuff. So there's what started me thinking down this path was I saw a really crazy TikTok that suggested that perhaps Elia Kane was Omega. And there's I mean,
you talk about crazy.
It's crazy, but she looks like
shit.
she could be a female version of a young
Omega.
Well, or like
a
the male clone. Yeah, like a male clone. So then Omega would be too old right now. She ages normally. So she could be another crack at it. But I started thinking that stuff was all too wacky for me, but it did bring Omega into this for me for a second to consider.
Yeah.
And so then I thought, what if the Kaminoans did what Palpatine wanted them to do, but completely out of curiosity, without him knowing it? What if they spliced DNA with clone DNA, combining two pieces of DNA, and made Force sensitivity work?
They've already done it and just didn't tell anybody.
And so we were joking in the first season that she looks a lot like Palpatine.
Omega, you mean? Or yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What if Omega is the actual missing link here? Like they want Grogu so they can make a second attempt.
Yeah.
But what if Omega?
What if we've already done
half Palpatine?
What if
it's already the successful version?
And
interesting.
And so what they need is cloners that have as much knowledge as possible, but they might also be running around wiping out the people that know these things. Like,
well, this is it. So let's just stop on that for a second, because talking about wiping out the selective wiping part, is this just a fancy magical Hollywood wand to erase all of his individuality so that Pershing will just do what he's told to do? Yep. Okay. I'll make the clone.
If it is, it was set up in season 1 because Cara Dune talks about they're not putting me in a mind flare.
No, of course not. Yeah.
And that brings my question. Yeah. Does this mind flare act, say, like your standard issue neuralizer, where, you set it for this, and it'll take away that chunk?
The flashy thing. Yeah. Where
which would put him back on Gideon's ship ready to work.
Or you can now implant the suggestion of, oh, by the way, from this period of time to this period of time, it's a normal day.
Yeah.
It might suggest even, you could put him back in the fleet and he might not have thought anything changed, but it suggests lobotomy, but we know that there's a whole separate tech for that.
Yeah.
To create lobots.
Exactly.
It raises a lot of questions. It's certainly a cruel and horrible twist because, like you say, he was redeemable. But I really think that you're going to see that Omega, even if the Palpatine splice is the Hail Mary, I think you're going to find that she's not a full clone of Jango Fett. That she is
Omega or she Elia Kane.
She Omega.
Okay.
I don't think Elia.
Just make sure. I want to make sure we're on the same page.
I think you're going to find that Omega, and the reason
has a little blend of something else going on.
And you know what? It's not lost on me that Snoke might look a little bit like Crosshair.
So that actually puts Omega closer in proximity to Rey than it does
100%
Jango Fett.
And you could go down another rabbit hole. What if the woman that we see in Rise of Skywalker isn't, maybe that's just the woman that's with Palpatine's clone.
at the time.
What if
maybe.
Rey's mom is Omega?
Oh, so that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
I do like that idea. Let's take a few seconds here and just check in with the
Catch up
chat
on the
for a second
comments,
here.
yeah.
Our friends from Sergeant Slaughterhouse checking in with the thumbs up. Hey guys, nice to see you tonight. Red says, my first reaction was she greased him for reminding her of her worst days and that she was genuinely on board and doing this for the Republic. That's interesting.
I might have thought that, but her face does too much.
Yeah, we're gonna take a real good look at that here in a second.
Yeah.
The follow-up is now I'm not as sure. That's fair.
That's what we do here.
Doug,
create dissent.
Is there a Jedi that could learn from reading someone's mind? Presumably, sure.
I would gather that's pretty basic stuff, actually.
Let me talk about this Jedi thing for a second. Is there a Jedi out there that could restore Pershing's mind through that fancy new but not new ability, Force healing? We've seen Grogu and Rey both heal physical wounds. Can they do other stuff? Interesting. I don't know.
Brain trauma.
Greg says, so does she still work for Moff Gideon or Thrawn and she's protecting the Republic from learning about the Imperial cloning program? Maybe. Solid maybe.
Know about the cloning program.
That is a solid maybe. I don't think it's as big of a
It's like they know about the Kaminoans. They know about the clone army.
The fact that and this isn't the Empire anymore. This is the remnant or what will become the Last Order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, would you? Geez, like there's a lot of questions.
There really is. Yeah.
She sacrifices her own freedom, gets put in this indoctrination camp ahead of him, presumably.
Yeah.
And waits for him to be here so that she can, or is this all on the fly? Like,
I don't know.
Was she captured legitimately? Did she go through the rehabilitation thing legitimately? Does she find this opportunity to do Gideon's work?
Well, let's
just run with it. Like there are a lot of questions.
Let's go back to the Starfighter battle for a second and just put that through the lens of somebody is pulling the strings. I do think she's Gideon's mole.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I don't think that.
I don't think
I just don't know whether this was orchestrated or this was an opportunity.
Well, that's a great, totally possible.
Because if it's orchestrated, that's crazy. That's some, Emperor level stuff.
Well, going back to that Emperor level stuff, is it weird or ironic that she's using her feminine wiles to set him up when in our Bad Batch episode, we already see Fee kind of the same trick with Tech.
Yeah. No, you're right. I
mean, we get a payoff here and we know that, she's not.
I don't think she's trying to build any kind of romance though with him.
But she's using that as a tool.
To
sway his decisions.
She's definitely spent, and it's so much more overt in this episode. Like I said, she's been trying to build rapport with him the entire episode, trying to
nudge him in this direction.
Oh, I'm sorry, I never introduced myself before. Now this is who I really am. And oh, you're a good man. And oh, your research is important. And oh, you should keep going. Oh, and helping the New Republic is the most important thing.
Yeah.
She knows what she's doing.
But the smile she gives him, it seems like a legitimate smile at the time.
But that's
the face she's put on,
right? Though that is the act. And I mean that is, we talked about this in Andor, Spycraft. Wow, she is top notch. How is it that she was only a communications officer?
Yeah, or was there something more to her?
Mind you, she is working for one of the a very notorious intelligence officer, and I'm sure that she's probably picked something up from him over the years.
Yep.
No, absolutely.
Eric says, force therapy sounds just as hokey as force healing. You know what? And it was a hokey religion until it wasn't.
Yeah, it's all real.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think that we pigeonholed them into powers. We're starting to see stuff in the High Republic we've never seen before, for sure.
Yeah. Communications officer is code for CIA. Oh, maybe.
Yeah, it's probably true. I mean, there's probably tiers to the ISB before you get your white tunic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait a second.
You got all your gophers in there too, right?
Did I put it in here? Oh, here it is. I did. Sorry, I just needed to look ahead.
Yeah, don't skip over that.
No, I don't want to. Is there any more we want to chew on this slide before I go ahead?
No, I think this is
I think
it.
Okay,
we've got
we've talked
nothing but
that out.
speculation left.
Well, in what might just be one of the best pop culture in-jokes and in the most meta way, we now have what I consider to be the absolute best
Reference.
best version of this now famous internet meme when we realize that, hey, come to the dark side, we have cookies. And now we really do.
We really do.
They're not travel biscuits, they're cookies.
It turns out she likes the yellow ones.
Yeah, I thought she liked the red ones.
It's a misdirect. Nobody likes cherry.
Everything was a
Isn't it?
lie.
But there it is. Like
The
you talk
lemon
about
ones.
that look, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There it is. It's the same. Remember I was saying in the courtyard back at Amnesty Housing, she has a very different expression about her when she's not facing him.
Yeah.
And that is a sample of what we saw in the courtyard.
Yeah.
Like she is cold and ruthless. Mm. All right. Dark side. We have cookies. Oh, by the way, I did same as before. I did tweet Jon Favreau again with this image, and I asked him if this scene was constructed with that in mind. I haven't heard anything.
One of these days
We
he'll
probably
answer back.
won't. We
One of
probably
these
won't, but who
days.
knows? Who All right, shifting gears. Coming out of hyperspace, Din Djarin's N1 starfighter and Bo-Katan's Gauntlet fighter head towards the planet that houses the Mandalorian covert. Now, on the way down, Mando tells Bo that she is his guest, and it would be in her best interest if she just kept her helmet on. Now, standing at the mouth of the cave, Paz Vizsla watches as Mando, Bo, and Grogu approach. Nothing earth-shattering here. We get a small continuity error where suddenly the dome is back on the droid socket. But Andy,
Yeah, maybe
you
it's
sleuth
just,
this one out.
Maybe it's a recycled asset from when he was taking approach on that big gator,
The gator
the
turtle.
gator turtle.
That I believe. We've got some footage hanging around that we can use. We're going to the same planet.
Might as well use it.
I think that totally tracks.
Hmm.
Because it's the only place in the episode where it appears. I went back and went through the whole starfighter battle.
Yeah, it's
Ne-
gone from
never
there.
there. Yeah. So good for you. I'll call that myth busted. All right. At the mouth of the cave, Paz Vizsla is joined by several other members of the covert as he stops Mando and Bo from entering. Now, he calls both of them apostate. Mando says that he's atoned, while Bo backs him up as his witness. Paz still isn't convinced, so Mando pulls the vial of the living waters as his proof. And inside the covert, Paz announces to the armorer that Din Djarin claims to have atoned. Bo confirms the baptism of sorts, and Mando hands the armorer the vial of the living waters. She takes the vial to the cooling bath, and the armorer pours the liquid into the vat. And seeing that familiar green luminescence, we finally learned that is what she's been pouring in every time we see her forge something.
Mm-hmm.
The armorer recognizes and accepts Mando's proof and declares him redeemed. She also declares that by creed, so is Bo-Katan. And even though Bo willingly admits that she doesn't walk the way of the Mandalore, she is still welcome because she hasn't removed her helmet since bathing in the living waters herself.
It's true.
With a couple of hearty this is the way, the covert welcomes both newly reminted Mandalorians, all except Paz Vizsla, of course, who remains conspicuously silent and standing off in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we cut to black.
This is a couple things here. The mythosaur piss in the water has a similar effect. Like we've seen it before, and I don't know if we've ever pointed it out, but it has a similar effect to when Palpatine's using Sith magic on water, like scrying. He does it with Dooku to track down Mother Talzin. He does it.
Oh yeah.
To gain access to the world between worlds.
Interesting.
I don't know. I was joking. I was like, "Hey, Lauren, want to start a nerd fight?" I was like, "What would win in a fight, Mithril or Beskar?" and she said Mithril. I was like, "No way." She's like, "Well, it's magic," and I'm like, "Well, what's in the water?"
Yeah, really.
Like, I saw a video where a blacksmith said that, like, literally, when quenching armor and weaponry, different minerals in the water will give you different effects, different colors, different things. Like salt water, like flushing it with salt water is different than flushing it with pure water. So,
right.
I mean, I chalk it up to, in like mineral content or something like that. That
I definitely wanted to talk
but it
about
explains why not just anybody can make Beskar.
Well, I wanted to talk about it in the sense that, in the forging sense, and I'm not a smith, so I don't really know. And we are talking space wizards and laser swords. So
sure.
The question is the anointing or the pouring of the living waters into the quench bath, is it ceremonial or is it practical?
I think it's
Probably
practical.
both.
I
would think both.
I'm completely mind blown by it either way.
Yeah.
And then my other question is, how much living waters did the armor have on her to begin with?
Well, she really wasn't. I mean, she was making selective pieces. The forge is relatively small.
True.
Yeah, and
she's making batches.
New stuff later.
Well, just for Din Djarin alone, she made a chess piece, 2 pauldrons, and like basically, I mean, if you've got your season 1 Mandalorian action figure next to your season 2, you can see how much she made for just one person.
Yeah.
No, it's true.
And I know that he brought her he did bring in the Beskar for yeah. He may have provided the metal, but the question isn't about the metal. It's like, if the water is now an integral part of this process, where did that come from?
But if it's like holy water, a drop will turn the whole thing into that kind of water.
But
then when you're done, scoop it back up.
You couldn't do that. It's already mixed.
No.
I don't believe that the whole bath is all living water.
Did she use the whole vial?
No, she didn't. But I mean, the whole like dropping it in, she didn't do that either. It's a generous bloop.
Yeah.
And it's a sample, right?
It's generous every time. I get it. It's to tell us that is a part of it. But the generous pours just make me go, whoa, that's a lot. Like, where are you stashing this stuff?
I'm sure it has something to do with or else like we said last episode, or else they would have done more than make money out of it.
If the Empire knew.
Oh
my God!
Craft armor.
For sure, they would have.
All they could do was melt it down and let it solidify into ingots.
Yep. Yeah.
She still has to add this to temper it into armor.
Yeah.
Like the ingot, I mean, I guess the ingot does save Grief Karga from being shot.
Oh, it does. Yes, it does. It does.
So I have questions about that too.
Yes, but she was shocked when he brought back all that raw Beskar. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Cam Tono was worth. Excuse me.
But if we apply a little bit of real world science, like we're seeing in the Curse of Oak Island right now, they're finding gold and silver like levels within the water that they're testing.
Oh yeah.
So if you're pulling that water out of a Beskar mine, would you not have some Beskar over the however many thousand years,
like molecular Beskar?
Yeah.
And then you temper it with that, you're like double hitting with Beskar.
That's a possibility too. Yeah. I just found it interesting that we finally get an explanation for this after, 3 seasons of, we've watched her forge 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
She's poured the stuff in and we're like, what's that? I got to be honest, never thought 1 second that it was the living waters. Never occurred to me. I just figured it was some kind of like
a magic.
It's the secret sauce. I just didn't know what the secret sauce was.
It would make sense, like that not all of them are making this stuff. Like there's the armorer.
That's true.
Yeah, and there's a finite. I was just gonna say that
Doug
there's
says
a finite
that there's not
amount
that many
of,
asking for armor. Yeah,
right. There's a finite amount. Although she looks like she's randomly swelling the ranks with plastic helmets here,
and we do, we do accept that not all Mandalorian armor is made of Beskar. It's whatever she can.
Even Din in first season had a shore trooper pauldron.
He's still got the back of his glove is still the shore trooper glove.
Yeah.
With the yellow triangle on it.
So maybe just by tempering it with, liquid Beskar, maybe it ups the factor just enough.
Perhaps.
Maybe.
Did you put a slide with the Gideon's troops? The
I did not with the new rumored troops.
right, yeah.
I did not. I want to stay out of rumor territory a little bit longer until we got a little bit more
Sure.
to chew on.
Certainly
with
looks
that.
to me like he might have cracked the Beskar
formula. Well, that I do the slide though of Gideon though later on. It's sort of in my final thoughts. Actually, we can bring that up here now because now we're sort of at the end of the show. We can kind of freeform this wherever we want to go. Actually, let's get that first. Already talking about the who's who in the zoo and who is orchestrating all this. Those are our main contenders for the season. There's been all kinds of stuff so far this last week about Gideon making a grand return as the overarching villain for the season. So I'm not ruling out a Thrawn cameo for the end of the season, but I mean, I am definitely interested to see how he comes back into this. And now that being said, I asked you guys offline outside of the show, and I want to ask the audience now, has anybody considered that Gideon himself is a Mandalorian?
That's a good thought. And we had posited a little while ago, someone had said, and I think it was in one of the chats, do you think he might be force sensitive? And it just occurred to me just this second, having him diametrically opposed to the ISB uniform of Thrawn there, that he dresses more like an Inquisitor.
He really does.
Than either an officer or a Moff or an ISB agent. Like looking at him right there, now with the red background, I'm like, wow, he's dressed exactly like an Inquisitor.
I think the belt really plays into that too, right? The cloak and but yeah, that's really on the nose. Why we didn't see him do anything? I don't know. Maybe that's the big reveal for this season. Doug says that Din sold his soul to get his pure armor.
Yeah, he did.
In some ways, he did. Yeah,
he broke his bounty hunter code.
He did. Yeah,
he sure did.
All right, well let's go back here for a second because I want to go back to the white mythosaur in the room, and I just want to start by I'm just going to pull this up for you. There's our little Mandalorian to-do list. Obtain the Darksaber in single combat. Have we done that?
Yep.
Yes, we have. Bathe in the living waters. Have we done that?
Yep.
Yes, we have. And bring proof back to the armor that we did that. Have we done that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we have. Well, we also know from last season with the singular combat between Paz Vizsla and Din Djarin that the armorer believes in the Mandalorian lore that the Darksaber is the key to the rulership of Mandalore. So the mythosaur in the room really is. I mean, Mandalore is standing in the room with them.
Nobody's
literally.
Does she believe that, or is she just telling him that? So
I don't know.
Have we considered that she just sent him to the mines of Mandalore just to get more juice,
or to get rid of him?
No, just to get more water.
I never even considered that. But
all she said was bring back proof. She didn't say, bring me back a jug.
True. Well, she didn't say bring me back proof in the form of water from the living waters.
Well, I know, like she didn't spell it out, but
I mean, if he ripped, what if he ripped that commemorative plaque off the obelisk and brought that back? I was there. Look, it's the plaque.
This is Beskar, but it's not good. I was hoping for water.
That's right.
But I mean, it was about the water, so it made like it didn't.
That he did bring a sample.
I didn't go. That's weird that he's taking a sample with him. I knew exactly where that was going.
I don't think she's lied as a spiritual leader. Now,
no,
I don't want to get into that.
She's also what I was saying before, that there are two factions here. There are two ideological beliefs.
Yeah,
and she's not following. She holds the friggin' thing in her hand. She lets it come and go.
Yep,
she's got the knowledge of it, but she lets it come and go out of her grasp. She excommunicates him while he's the ruler of Mandalore.
So what
she's in the mythosaur camp. What I'm saying is she's in the mythosaur camp.
That's an interesting point then. So that's gonna put our two ladies potentially in direct conflict with each other. Have we considered that?
I have.
That Bo and the armor are going to be at odds.
I have, in fact.
The ideological differences.
You might not get the here's how it probably goes down in my head, if this is head canon or speculation but Din loses the sword in non-lethal combat to Paz Vizsla. Maybe he's
Okay.
drugged or tricked or some,
Yeah.
but he loses
Yeah.
the sword. Grogu tames the mythosaur, and then they it's not very well thought out, but you see the factions. Then you have now the opposite. They have the opposite faction's magical weapon, right?
True.
So it really does become about what do you believe in, what is a real
Mythosaur trumps.
Mandalorian.
Yeah,
And
Mythosaur
yes,
trumps Darksaber.
Yeah.
in my opinion, if we're going to use the full scope of the lore,
Yeah.
Mythosaur trumps Darksaber. But what happens when the Mythosaur rider also has the Darksaber?
Well,
so I don't think you're going to get that
That's
until
like
the rumored Bo-Katan series.
Interesting. Eric says there is a lot of poster art this season of all 4 of them: Din, Bo, Paz, and the armor. Yeah. Yep. And by that, what are you implying by that? That they are going to forge ahead as one big happy Mandalorian family? Like,
there's also a
little
poster of the Babu Frick characters too. So
there,
And Peli Motto finally got
Hey!
and perhaps they will be the Mandalorian.
I don't know.
So we can't read too much into the posters.
I said that there is still something to go between these 2 kids, and I still think that there's something to that. I can't see that we don't see Ragnar come back in some capacity, especially when his ceremony was under the clan Vizsla flag.
I do. I think that, like I said, season 4 will be about Grogu sitting on the throne and usurpers challenging him in the form of clan Vizsla.
That's an interesting one,
because now, it brings back like Death Watch as a viable faction.
Yeah. Is that something that we really want? Like that whole
Well, Bo's already said they're killing each other for
Satine's
no reason.
Satine's. I know Satine was a pacifist, but Satine advocated for another way, and then you had Bo, who was radicalized as part of the Death Watch, who was completely fine to just live the warrior way.
Right. Yeah. So I think she's already been redeemed. What I think now is that she's broken.
Do you see it going the other way though? Is there a version of this where Bo-Katan does adopt the way of the Mandalore and she's now one of them?
I can see her meeting them in the middle. Like, because she, again, she's got that card to play. Like, I saw the Mythosaur.
Yeah, I think that maybe she's still a little bit narcissistic.
Again, like I said at the beginning of the show, her entire arc since we met her all the way back in the Clone Wars has been about ruling Mandalore.
She even says, she says it in an interview. Again, the actress spilling the beans a little too much possibly, but she says everything that Bo-Katan is about now is about her guilt over her sister's death. And her involvement in that.
So if there's remorse there, how better to honor your sister than to carry on in her steps?
Well, and this is it. And she failed the first time. So whether she's narcissistic enough to think that she can she wields the thing like a demon.
Well, yeah.
Right.
But I mean, that goes back to a non-force sensitive wielding any lightsaber.
Yeah.
You know, that lesson that Sabine got from Kanan Jarrus.
Right, but she certainly believes in herself. if that's what it's right, like if that's the key.
It would be interesting.
Din is fighting the saber. He's fighting himself. He's still conflicted.
If she'd fought that
she's the true
cyborg
believer.
After she had seen the Mythosaur, I wonder if it would have been a different.
Would it have been heavier for her?
This is it.
Wouldn't that be a future episode where she, for some reason, Din is incapacitated and she's got to pick it up and she can't.
What does our title mean, though? What does our title mean?
The convert. Who's converting?
Right, Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan is the convert, but it's not a convert. It's not. It's an ethical change. It's a morality question because she's the only one that knows the truth.
Yeah,
that there's a Mythosaur, and that's the actual one. You don't need the Darksaber anymore. That's a bauble. It's a sigil to what's actually beneath the minds there.
We can literally Luke Skywalker that thing now.
Yeah,
just toss it over our shoulder.
You really could. I think everybody wants to see the rider wield the weapon, but I really think that you're going to see there's two ideologies there: the weapon and the Mythosaur. And I think you'll see a faction up before you see everything come together.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Hank, you had asked me to include a slide of a couple
Yeah.
of characters. I'm going to put that up for you. You want to take us through your thoughts around the idea of
Yeah.
these two characters?
So I don't know if our viewers know much about Rook Cast. So back in the comics in the 80s, in the Marvel comics, there was a character, Jodo Cast. He was actually
That's right.
a member of the Rebellion. Wasn't Mandalorian at all, but killed a Mandalorian, stole his armor, painted it like Boba Fett, and then impersonated Boba Fett
yeah.
for a long time until Boba Fett came back to life, killed him, and
killed him.
so anyways, they sort of canonize at least the name. So Rook Cast here. And I don't have any super good reasons except for there's a few visual cues.
Yep.
So for those people that don't know, Rook Cast was she was a lieutenant under oh my goodness, Gar Saxon. Yeah. And she was actually the second command of the Mandalorians, the Mandalorian super commandos when Maul was the ruler. And it's all about the armorers, the palette, like right there.
I definitely will. I'll give you the color palette for sure.
Okay.
It's very, very similar.
The horns on her new helmet.
We did speculate on that back in the
right. So it sort of fits. And the weirdest little other quirk is that the two actresses, I don't have their names off the top of my head, but the two actresses who
Emily
play
Swallow
both characters.
And I don't know who
was it. Vanessa Marshall?
Maybe.
They're both American actresses putting on British accents.
Yeah, better than Carrie Fisher.
So I mean, I don't know if there's any legs to it, but it's an interesting thought. I think it's more interesting than Sabine's mom. I think it really because her and Bo-Katan have a real score to settle.
Absolutely, they do. I mean, that could be this huge reveal. Like, maybe the armor in private, will take her helmet off and it'll be the, it's you.
I think that would be real cool and another deep dive. And I don't think it's as big a stretch as any other character. A lot of people are saying if it's not her, just let it be some rando that's just as cool. But
I'm okay with it. Them not being the same. Mind you, Rook is another one of those characters that is in the wind that we don't have a canonical death for this character.
No, perfect age.
So,
perfect mens rea, and the palette and the helmet style. It all lines up for me.
So we are a +1 for the armor as possibly being Rook Cast. And if that is the case, then there's history there between Rook and Bo that could play into more dramatic tension as we move forward.
Big time. I mean, Bo-Katan is a cautionary tale. She tells it like it's from the inside.
That is true. Yeah.
Brad Swenson had a follow-up to his poster comment.
He does. Yeah. Eric is saying it implies that the four of them are all major players in the season. The four of them being obviously Bo, Din,
and the Babu Fricks.
And hey, sorry, I'm every time.
And the IG-88 statue. There's
perhaps the most polarizing episode of the series so far.
I don't get it.
And at the beginning of this, Hank, you said, "But we need this."
We do.
Yes.
And I agree. We need
everything is going on Mandalore. Other wheels are in motion.
No. And we all wanted to know. We all wanted to know what was going on in that sort of that other side. That there's so many little things that were voiced, like just exposition.
Yeah.
We have two rumors about what happened to Gideon, but we know they're either death or that he escaped, and it's much more likely that he escaped.
Yeah, he's in the wind there somewhere,
right?
Too.
He's
almost
100% in the wind. Right?
Yeah. Next week it is, like I said before, we're going from the longest episode to the shortest episode at just over, I think it's rumored just over 30 minutes. It's
Foundling.
It's called The Foundling, and it's co-written by John and Dave. Almost certainly a Grogu-centric episode. Will we get the answer? How did Grogu get out of the Jedi Temple?
It happened.
The way. Where there's a Dave Filoni co-writing credit, there's probably some Ahsoka.
There could be that as well. Other possibilities, we can revisit sort of all the couple of the Barriss Offee reference that we got from before, passing her quarters in the temple. There's a rumor that Mace Windu may be the one to have gotten him out. We've talked about R2 because of the way that Star Wars is framed through the eyes of R2D2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are all sort of potential.
There's a Rosario Dawson tweet I didn't memorize, but she seemed to be teasing something too on Twitter. So
I'll have to go and look at that.
Yeah,
I have to go and look at that. Let us know what you guys think. What do you think is coming in the weeks to come with The Mandalorian as we are we at the halfway point yet? I guess we are, aren't we? How many episodes?
No, I think we're only 3 or 4
That was
episodes.
3.
sorry.
That was 3. We
I
got
was
a little
I was
ways
so
to go.
Star Wars this week. It was so heavy in the
3.5.
prep process. Yeah, sorry. Bad Batch, we're halfway.
Bad Batch, we're like 3 episodes away.
We're
from the end.
we're at the end. Well, we still got a double episode.
True. So technically 2 weeks away.
Both episodes this week, between last week's Bad Batch, the last couple of Bad Batches, and this week's Mandalorian, all sort of funneling towards that what's happening in the sequel era. And so all that stuff that we talked about before, recontextualizing the sequels.
Yeah.
Looks
might
like
make them worth watching.
It's coming to fruition, all that and a little bit of hey, because that's never going to get old for me.
They're
I
coming
love
back.
it.
We have to go back there and find out if they fixed the droid without the part.
If I can get you the part, can you fix the droid? But now
Sure.
we've already been to the basement of Mandalore. We don't need it
Just
anymore.
means he has to kill another. Well, no, but he's still friends. They're still,
That's right.
if he goes
You're a
back
friend.
there, it just means he's
You're
got to
a friend.
encounter and kill another IG unit.
That's
True.
maybe IG-88 has survived in new canon. Who knows?
Hmm.
It'd be a good way to get another IG droid out. And
Cut his head off
More
to get
action
our
figures,
Mandalorian.
another
A
repaint,
another
Maybe I'll have a red
great
arm.
Easter egg. So all that bounty hunter action that we didn't get in the Book of Boba Fett, could we have a bounty hunter team up and IG-88 is one of
The
them?
Bounty Hunter
Maybe.
comic, guys. The Marvel Bounty Hunter
I
comic
know.
is so
I
good.
know. I know. All right. Well, guys, what do you think? You think we're good to wrap it up here?
I think so. I think
It was
It was a long episode, man. It was a very long prep process for me this week. So I apologize. I apologize if I've missed any major Easter eggs. If I have, do let me know if there's anything I should have talked about that we didn't. And,
Our buddy at Screen Crush, we're not naming anybody, but he I saw
Just
a
his
panic.
channel.
I saw a panic TikTok where he had
really?
he'd missed the whole opera scene, Palpatine
What?
theme, and he had to do it. He's like, I can't believe I effed this up, and he's almost like an apology video and recovery. He's like, I write all the Easter eggs, and I can't believe I missed this one. He was like swearing in it. It was
Oh man,
I beat you,
your mom. Bad your mom jokes. Anyway, okay. Enough about other YouTubers. We don't care what they're doing. We care what we're doing.
It was funny.
We care what we're doing. Shout out to our friends. They don't know that they're our friends. Shout out to our friends over at Krypton to Alderaan, an awesome little mostly Star Wars podcast, just like us.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly Star Wars. All right, guys, do come back and see us on Tuesday night when we sit down again and we hang out for Random Fandom, where we can talk about sort of the entertainment.
The other
news.
non-Star Wars
Yeah,
stuff.
the non-Star Wars. There might be some Star Wars in there. I can't tell this far ahead where it's going to be.
You never know.
There's all these icons here.
Yes, there is a bunch of icons there. When we do Random Fandom on Tuesday nights, that is a call-in show. You are more than welcome to call us up. Tell us what you want to say. Tell us about the news that's important to you, so we can all have a discussion about that together.
And who's it going to be? Who's going to be the first actual functioning call-in?
Not you or I.
No,
Not Rolf the dog.
no.
Okay,
I don't know. We'll test it again, and it'll be ready. But who's it going to be?
Yeah.
Eric's still super lonely as the only patron.
That's right, the only patron on our Patreon. Thank
Yeah.
you very much for that. We appreciate your continued support.
We'd love to put your name in lights, guys.
We're almost at the point where that's making a difference, where we might actually get a month's worth of our streaming platform paid for.
It's coffee money.
Do check out the our merch shop. I believe we are 70 plus designs in
72.
the merch shop. Tons of pop culture inspired designs like this one that you may recognize, including all of the logos for our review series. Yeah, and love to hear from you any way that you want to talk to us. Well, okay, not anyway, but you know what I mean. To the show.
No chatbots.
Nobody tried to sell us anything on Twitch this week.
No, that'll come Tuesday.
That's right.
Promote it here.
I mentioned it a while back. I'm going to mention it again now. Do keep in mind, folks, there is going to come a time where we are going to push our streams away from Facebook and Twitter, and we would really love it if you came over and joined us over on YouTube. We feel like that is the best way to maximize what we are doing. That being said, we're not there yet. We will still continue to stream to Facebook and for the time being, but that is on the radar that we will be winding that down. Twitch is almost dead in the water right now. It makes very little sense for us to keep streaming there when nobody's watching over there. So
yeah,
we want to be where you guys are. That being said, if you have ideas for the show, hit us up, fandompower3@gmail.com. Hit us up on the social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Love to hear your thoughts about the show, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. Please be kind. Until then, guys, we'll see you Tuesday night, and we'll be back again this time next week. Don't forget, 12 noon, Bad Batch at 12 noon, The Mandalorian at 6 p.m., and Random Fandom Tuesday nights at 6. Until the next video, guys, for Fandom Power, my name is Wes.
I'm Andy.
I'm Hank.
And we will catch you on the next one, guys. Bye for now.
This is the way.
This is the way.